Placing the other half back among the 4 twigs, the top stone neither sprang away nor merged with the bottom half. Instead, it hovered steadily among the 4 twigs, suspended in midair. Dali and Rue stared in disbelief, their jaws dropping. They could hardly believe their eyes. Suddenly, Rue felt there was something extraordinary about you. He asked doubtfully, "Are you a shaman? Are you taking this stone back to make other things fly?" "No, I'm a chief just like you. Our tribe is called the Han tribe and we have many people. We came here to find this stone to extract metal from it. With metal, we can craft powerful weapons, tools, and ornaments." Your words made Rue's heart leap with excitement. "Chief Han, how do you turn this stone into metal?" You waved your hand dismissively and said, "I can't tell you that. Even if I did, you wouldn't be able to learn it. Making metal is very difficult, and I only teach my own tribesmen." Rue grew anxious, wanting to secure this opportunity for his tribe. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "Chief Han, what if I trade white salt for the method of making metal? If you agree to teach us, I'll have my tribe gather wild herbs and have Bazooka deliver them to you." You refused outright. "No, I don't need it. Our Han tribe has other sources for white salt, and it's even better than what you have here." As you spoke, you took out a dignified small pouch from your waist, opened it, and showed Rue the contents. The white salt inside was flawless, purer than the salt naturally formed by the lake. Rue was utterly dumbfounded. Sweat trickled down his hands. "What if I trade with you using the offspring of our bazooka?" Hearing this, Dali, who was watching nearby, gazed at the bazooka circling in the sky and said with a hint of envy, "That eagle might not be of much use, but it certainly looks majestic. Maybe we should get one." You shot him a glare. "You just said it's useless. Why would we want it then?" Seeing both of you react this way, Rue anxiously emphasized, "Our tribe doesn't give eagles away lightly, but if we do, it means we consider you friends, even brothers. Besides, our eagles are incredibly capable. They help hunt prey. A single eagle can live for decades, bringing back game every day. Do you have any idea how many people one eagle can sustain? How could it possibly be useless?" You pondered his words. If these eagles could be trained to carry messages, they might actually be an asset to the Han tribe. However, very few people in the Han tribe could read or write, making that idea difficult to implement. Moreover, aside from their eagles, the Ying tribe didn't seem to have much else to offer. This potential alliance felt somewhat dispensable. So, you declined Rue's proposal once again. "Still, I can't tell you. Even if I did, it wouldn't help. The method of crafting metal is extremely challenging. Let me put it this way, you have to burn that kind of stone in a fire to extract the metal from within. But that requires an enormous amount of firewood. Even if you cut down every tree on your floating island, you still wouldn't succeed in smelting metal." Rue listened, his expression falling. "So that's how it is. Only those who live on the solid ground can produce metal." You nodded. "Pretty much. Your floating island may be large, but its resources are ultimately limited. If the Ying tribe wishes to grow and thrive, you'll have to come down from the floating island and live with your feet on the ground." Hearing your words, Rue felt a wave of uncertainty. He thought of his tribe's water issues. Their daily supply relied entirely on melted snow in winter, collected rainwater, and condensation from evaporated brine lakes. With such scarce water resources, development was indeed risky. He had long considered leading his people away from the floating island, but he worried they wouldn't adapt or be willing to leave. After hesitating for a moment, Rue said to you, "Han chieftain, may I invite you to visit our tribe?" You politely declined. No. I've been away from my tribe for some time now, and my people are waiting for me to return." Rue was disappointed but pressed on. "Then when are you leaving? Will you come back here in the future?" You replied, "Of course we will. I'll send my tribesmen here to mine stones soon. They'll return before long. As for us, we'll leave tomorrow morning." Rue's eyes lit up instantly. "Could I go with you to the Han tribe tomorrow? I want to learn how to survive on the solid ground." Hearing this, you felt a surge of quiet excitement. This could be a perfect opportunity to bring the Ying tribe under the Han tribe's influence. Without hesitation, you agreed. Thrilled by your consent, Rue immediately called his bazooka to carry him back to the floating island. He needed to inform his tribe about his upcoming absence. Meanwhile, your group didn't idle around. You skinned the wolfhound, sewed several leather bags with hemp rope, and then started digging at the lakeside where you'd found saltpeter. You decided to take some saltpeter back first to address the Han tribe's urgent need for nitrate raw materials. As for the iron ore, you only brought a few pieces for the time being. Back on the floating island, Rue recounted every detail of his encounter with you to his tribesmen, and even showed them the bronze dagger you'd gifted. The tribespeople were astonished. They never imagined tribes on the ground could be so advanced. Finally, Rue proposed his idea of visiting the Han tribe to learn more. Although the tribesmen were somewhat hesitant, they did not object. Early the next morning, you set off along the riverbank with Rue. At the same time, the cavalry you had previously sent back with the 7 grass seeds had already caught up with the main force returning to the city. They brought news of your expedition to explore the new mining area and delivered new orders to plant the 7 grass seeds as soon as possible after returning. By then, they had already reached the mountainous area behind the Han tribe's settlement. Meanwhile, across the small river to the east of the Han tribe, the Li tribe sent another 10 people to the Han tribe. They were searching for tribesmen who had been missing for several days. It turned out that Mao Li, the chief of the Li tribe, had previously come to the Han tribe for trade and made threatening remarks, resulting in Shu detaining him. This new group of envoys met the same unfortunate fate. On the Han tribe's side, the Western Expedition Army returned triumphantly, having slain 17 giant apes, captured over 200 slaves, and brought back new crops along with the addition of a small tribe. The entire tribe celebrated together. The women were overjoyed because the men had returned safely, and the tribe had successfully defended its territory. Shu was also delighted. He had previously worried that facing so many giant apes would be dangerous, but now his anxious heart was finally at ease. The more than 30 detained members of the Li tribe were tied up and given only a bowl of water to drink each day, a method Shu had learned from you. Li Wu, a high-ranking member of the Li tribe, knew that Mao Li's mindset was somewhat radical and was deeply concerned about the situation. He waited for 2 days, but instead of the search party returning, a group from the south arrived, a team led by Yu Fu. They had a house pulled by 2 old oxen and a herd of black and white spotted piglets, which looked quite peculiar. Li Wu stopped Yu Fu's group, mistaking them for members of the Han tribe, and asked if they had seen any Li tribesmen. Yu Fu explained that they were merely friends of the Han tribe and that their goods were acquired through trade. Li Wu pleaded with Yu Fu to help inquire about his missing tribesmen. At first, Yu Fu demanded 5 animal hides for his assistance, but after Li Wu offered 2 as a deposit, he agreed. Afterward, Yu Fu and his team continued their journey toward the Han tribe. The next day, the tribe's leadership decided to resume their previous tasks, focusing on farming and construction. 20 to 30 people were assigned to guard the captives. Shi Tu led a 20-member hunting team to hunt and patrol, while news of the victory was sent to neighboring tribes to lift the combat readiness alert. A logging team of over 100 people went to the western forest to cut timber. The women went out to gather food and construction materials. The original construction team paused their building work to begin plowing and sowing the second season of rice. On the 3rd day after the main force's return, your group followed the river and reached the dark forest. This delighted you, as the river was connected to the Han tribe's river, making future travel much more convenient. It would take only 1 more day to return to the Han tribe. That same afternoon, Yu Fu, who had been exploring for over 2 months, arrived at the eastern side of the Han tribe's wooden bridge with 56 spotted pigs. However, they encountered difficulties. The wooden bridge lacked proper railings, making it easy for the piglets to be pushed off. Fortunately, with the help of the women from the fishing team, they managed to herd the pigs across. Shu, having heard the news, hurried to the bridge. He was thrilled to see Yu Fu bringing so many spotted pigs. Yu Fu explained that the pigs were acquired from the Lu tribe in exchange for white salt and pottery, and 10 young women had been brought along specifically to tend to the pigs. He also brought back 2 types of plants. One was a vine with large flowers, and the other was a spherical plant with large leaves. However, the spherical plants had been fed to the pigs during the journey, leaving only some seeds. Shu asked Yu Fu what reward he desired. Yu Fu replied that he wanted a house in the Han tribe. He wished for his people to spend the winter there and to join the Han tribe. The big tree said it couldn't make the decision. You have to wait for your return to decide. Yu Fuzhong nodded, allowing the clansmen to settle in first, while he went to find the elders to tour the Han tribe's houses. The next day, around 8 or 9 in the morning, your group finally caught sight of the Han tribe's wooden bridge. Robao and Huishan let out excited roars. They were finally home. The women of the Han tribe, hearing the roars, knew the chief had returned and were overjoyed. Bazooka circled in the sky before finally perching on the main beam of a house that hadn't been roofed yet. Tsubing rode Benben over, followed by several large gray wolves. They growled and snarled at Bazooka. You saw Tsubing, ruffled his hair, and asked with a smile if he had missed you. Tsubing looked up and asked, "Did you find a new frame again? Is it the same as our old one?" You laughed and said, "No. This time I found something even better than the frame." As you spoke, you took 2 small magnets out of your bag and gave them to Tsubing. He had never seen such a magical thing and ran off gleefully. Soon, the tribe's senior members came to greet you one after another, also there to report on the situation. Xiaodai came over to check on you and, only after seeing you were fine, took Robao and Huishan back first. For this meeting, Dali and Chief Rue of the Ing tribe exceptionally participated. The elder spoke first. "Chief, the first season of rice our tribe planted has all been dried and stored, but I haven't allowed the clansmen to eat it yet, nor have we started planting again. We don't know how much to sow. However, we've already had the clansmen plow the fields that were just harvested. So we're ready to plant the second season of rice at any time. Right now, the clansmen are clearing the grassland west of the city area. In 7 days, they've already reclaimed over 10 acres. I'm not sure if that's enough. Supplies have also been replenished. Farming should be the top priority. Everything else can wait." You immediately made arrangements. Soon, you 2 elders should go and have the clansmen soak the rice seeds. About 17 times the amount from last time should be enough. Soak the seeds in buckets, skim off any that float to the top, and place them in a shaded area inside the walls. Remember, absolutely no direct sunlight. Shuda then reported, "Chief, we encountered no dangers on our way back. It's just that the prisoners of war tried to escape a few times, but we caught them every time. Now, I've assigned warriors to guard them in shifts. They still get 1 bowl of water a day and are fed once every 3 days. At this point, they're too weak from hunger to resist and do whatever they're told." Hearing this, you smiled and patted Shuda's shoulder. "Well done. Keep the prisoners under guard for now. We'll assign them work in a few days." Dashu began his report. "Chief, the day I returned, I happened to run into the Li tribe coming to trade with us. That Li tribe chief, seeing that all our men were away, told the elder and Shuwu that he wanted to exchange for our bronze tools this time. The elder and Shuwu refused. That guy then threatened to burn down the tung tree forests on their side so we could never get tung seeds again. It made the elder and Shuwu furious. I returned just in time, saw what was happening, and killed him on the spot. The clansmen he brought with him were all detained by me. Later, the Li tribe sent 10 more people to look for them and I detained them too. Should we attack them next? Please decide, Chief." Hearing this, you were instantly enraged. "Do they think the Han tribe has no one? How dare they cause trouble when I'm not here? You did the right thing. Since they dare to bully us at our doorstep, we must retaliate. Tomorrow, Shuda will take 200 warriors and surround the Li tribe. Force them to surrender and join the Han tribe. If they refuse, kill them. Also, take those people we bought from the Li tribe last year with you. Let them persuade the others. If they still refuse by then, don't say I didn't give them a chance to live. Rat leader, you handle this matter personally. Remember, try to get them to surrender if possible. Bring back as many people as you can." Big Tree then mentioned another piece of good news. Yesterday, the Yu tribe returned from the east. They found a tribe that raises animals. Using the white salt and pottery we provided, they traded for several dozen piglets. Though they can't be used for labor, they can be raised for meat. Additionally, their hides can be used to make shoes. There were as many as 50 piglets and 6 adult pigs as well. 4 of them were pregnant sows. That fellow Yofu also brought back 10 young women from the other tribe, who specialize in raising pigs. I've temporarily put all the pigs in the pens. As for how to raise them, that's up to you, Chief. Oh, and one more thing. Yofu also brought back 2 types of plants. One is a vine with large flowers, brought back planted in a clay pot. Said to be something the pigs love to eat. The other is a spherical plant with large leaves. But Yofu said they fed all they had to the pigs on the way back. Now only some seeds remain. Hearing this, you exclaimed joyfully, "This is truly great news. I'll go take a look at those pigs myself later." What about Yofu and the others? Did you give them more white salt and pottery? We must properly thank them this time. Big Tree replied, "That fellow hasn't left yet, but he took some people hunting on the east bank of the river early this morning. He probably won't be back until evening. As for rewards, I haven't given them anything yet. That fellow Yufu doesn't want white salt or pottery anymore. He said he wants to live in our houses this time, but he won't join the Han tribe. I couldn't agree to that, so I had to wait for you to return and decide. Hearing this, you were somewhat surprised. If they don't join the Han tribe, there's no way you can let them live here. But this matter will have to wait until evening to discuss it with that fellow. After the meeting, you took Chief Rue on a tour of the tribe. The prosperity of the Han tribe truly astonished Rue. A dazzling array of containers, almost everyone had one, and there was even an abundance of bronze tools and weapons everywhere. Various types of carts were neatly parked, and the thriving livestock and farming industries left Rue in awe. When he saw the women of the tribe skillfully weaving with wooden machines, he was so shocked he couldn't close his mouth. After all, the Ying tribe was still at the stage of using animal hides for clothing and bags. Full of curiosity, Rue asked you, Chief Han, can our Ying tribe also grow this kind of rice? You shook your head slightly and patiently explained, of course you can grow it, but cultivating rice requires a lot of fresh water. The land around your lake is saline alkali, so it simply won't grow there. To grow rice, you need to find open land near a water source. But such places are truly hard to come by. Look at the 2 rivers in our tribe. They were dug out bit by bit with great effort. In the evening, Yofu returned from hunting, carrying a plump young deer. He came to you cheerfully, saying he wanted to have dinner together. During the meal, Yofu ate large mouthfuls of rice while praising it incessantly. This rice is such a rare delicacy. Tastes good and fills you up. By the way, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. Our tribe has no fixed home, and we struggle every winter. Do you think you could let us spend the winter here and give us a few houses to live in? You smiled upon hearing this. Yofu, you know well that these houses were built through the hard work of our tribe's people. I can't just give them to you so easily. Unless you join our Han tribe, then we can all work together, and the matter of houses will naturally be easier to resolve. Yofu's expression immediately turned troubled. I understand you mean well for us, but our tribe people love adventure and aren't keen on staying in one place for too long. After a moment of thought, you offered a suggestion. How about this? If you join the tribe, I'll assign a dedicated team to accompany you on your journeys. Your women and children can stay here in the tribe, where it's safe and convenient. That way, when you return, you'll have a stable place to rest and recover. What do you think? Yufu found your reasoning quite sound, but said he needed to discuss it thoroughly with his clansmen and would give you an answer the next day. Seeing an opportunity, you quickly added, I have a new task these next couple of days. Sending a team to a place a few days' journey north to retrieve some important items. If you decide to join, you'll need to act quickly. Otherwise, I'll have to send my own people. Yufu nodded seriously, promising to give you an answer as soon as possible. Early the next morning, Shuda assembled 200 warriors, ready to head to the Li tribe. Standing solemnly before the troops, you declared loudly, Tribesmen, the Li tribe dared to challenge us before, even threatening to burn down the Tung Tree forest we urgently need. Their leader has already paid the price for his recklessness, but we must take control of the Li tribe. Those vital resources must be firmly in our hands. Of course, I don't wish to see too many casualties. After all, most of the Li tribe are innocent. So, your mission this time is to force the Li tribe to surrender as much as possible and have them join our Han tribe. Whether you can bring back more people depends on your abilities. I'll be waiting in the tribe for your triumphant return. Shuda, the cunning and decisive leader, nodded and led the team as they set off in a grand procession. No sooner had things been settled here than Yufu hurried over, his face beaming with joy, and said, Chief, I've discussed it with my clansmen, and they are all willing to join the Han tribe. Hearing this, Yu happily patted Yufu on the shoulder and said, From today onward, the Yu tribe will become the Yu clan of the Han tribe. For the next couple of days, take your people around the tribe and see what kind of work they enjoy doing. In a few days, I'll assign specific tasks to you. Curious, Yufu asked, Chief, could you give us a hint about what these tasks might be? Of course, Yu replied. On the grasslands north of our Han tribe, there's a herd of horses with striped patterns, about 300 of them. If we can capture them, they'll be a great asset to the tribe. In the future, tasks like plowing fields and transportation will become much easier. After arranging matters for Yufu, you busied yourself making leg shackles for the slaves. Crafting these shackles was no simple task. They consisted of 9 parts, and the process was quite complex. However, with your extensive experience, you quickly designed the production process and handed it over to Big Mouth's metallurgy team to handle. After 2 days and nights of intense effort, the metallurgy team finally produced 100 sets of leg shackles. You then ordered the slaves to be brought over and fitted with the shackles. These slaves, having been detained for so long and barely fed, were already weak from hunger. Now, with the heavy shackles on, they could hardly move and had no choice but to stay put, not daring to resist in the slightest. Meanwhile, Shuda and his team traveled swiftly and soon arrived at the Li tribe. They quickly surrounded the Li tribe from all sides. Shuda found Li Wu and sternly explained the entire situation, making it clear that surrender was their only way out. Upon hearing this, Li Wu was momentarily uncertain. Just then, the young men and women from the Li tribe who had been brought along began persuading their relatives. They vividly described the many benefits of the Han tribe and assured them that their previously detained clansmen were safe and sound. They emphasized that by surrendering now, everyone could soon reunite and, like others in the tribe, enjoy all the privileges and resources. Hearing this, the Li tribe's people gradually let go of their concerns. They felt that they had no deep-seated grudge against the Han tribe and saw no reason to sacrifice themselves for a leader who was already dead. As more and more people laid down their weapons, Li Wu realized the situation was beyond saving and reluctantly made the decision to surrender. Seeing this, Shuda arranged for his warriors to help the Li tribe pack their belongings and prepare to move. From the initial contact to the surrender and packing, the entire process took only 1 morning. By the afternoon, Shuda was leading a team of over 400 people on their journey back. From that day on, the Li tribe officially became the Li clan of the Han tribe, increasing the Han tribe's population by more than 200 people. During dinner that evening, several high-ranking members of the tribe gathered with you to discuss the tribe's development while eating. Deshu, looking puzzled, asked, "Chief, is that iron or you mentioned really that important? Does this mean we won't need to mine copper anymore?" Putting down his bowl and chopsticks, you explained seriously, "Iron is far more important than copper. However, we will continue mining the copper at Baobao Mountain, though we'll reduce the amount appropriately. For now, our main focus should be on collecting limestone, as it's essential for both building houses and smelting iron. This time you will lead a team. Off to Mount Babao. Besides limestone, we also need to fetch some kaolin clay and Yixiao soil. I plan to use them to make refractory bricks and build several new large smelting furnaces. This will help us increase the speed and output of our metal smelting." Dashu quickly nodded in understanding. Then you turned to Dali and Shuetu and gave them detailed instructions. The team heading to the Salt Lake Iron Mine will be led by Dali, with Tsutu as the deputy leader. Once you arrive, the first priority is to establish a camp suitable for long-term residence. The trees there aren't as abundant as here, so when building the camp you can learn from Tribe 7's methods and dig semi-underground earth shelters. This will save on lumber and make it easier to manage the slaves. Divide the slaves into several groups and confine them in separate pits. When the slaves go to work each day, issue them tools, but in the evening when work ends, be sure to collect all the tools and redistribute them the next day. If you catch any slave using tools to damage restraints, don't hesitate. Shoot them on the spot. If anyone slacks off, beat them harshly. If they disobey, withhold their food. Make sure they obey without question. Dali and Shuetu nodded solemnly. "We understand. We'll follow your instructions exactly." You gave a slight nod and continued, "Yofu will also accompany you this time, but his main task is to lead a team to round up wild horses. As soon as they're captured, he'll return immediately. I'll place all the cavalry under his command and have him assist you in clearing wild beasts from around the mining area. As for the method of capturing wild horses, I've explained it before. Set up an ambush position in advance, send cavalry to scout, locate the herd, and then have the cavalry drive them into the encirclement to capture them all at once. These horses can later be used for plowing fields, opening up more land, and growing more crops. Whether we can ensure everyone has enough to eat depends entirely on how many horses you bring back." The senior leaders listened and nodded in agreement. Only Eagle Hand Ridge sat thoughtfully to the side, seemingly wrestling with a difficult decision. The experiences he'd witnessed in the Han tribe over the past few days had deeply shaken him. After careful consideration, he mustered the courage to say to you, "Chief of the Han tribe, could our Eagle tribe also join the Han tribe and live together with you, like the Yu tribe? But I have one concern. Our Eagle tribe has raised giant eagles for generations, and they've never left the nesting grounds. I'm worried they might not adapt to life here." Hearing Rue's words, you were both surprised and delighted. You quickly replied, "Your desire to join the Han tribe is certainly welcome. As for the giant eagles, there's no need to worry. If you're concerned about their breeding, We can build special nests for them on the western mountains. Even if they don't adapt well here, they can always return to the nesting grounds to breed. After all, the area around Salt Lake will soon be Han tribe territory. So, feel free to relocate your entire tribe. Rui nodded repeatedly, his concerns gradually easing. He found your arrangements thoughtful and considerate of the Eagle tribe's unique circumstances, which made him see you as a compassionate and understanding leader. He believed that, under your guidance, he and his people could indeed lead a better life. Rising to his feet, Rui bowed to you with solemn respect. Chief, thank you for accepting us. From now on, the Eagle tribe will. I will definitely give my all for the Han tribe and make my own contributions. You quickly stepped forward to help Rui Fu up. Ha ha ha, excellent. From now on, you are the Eagle squad of the Han tribe. Since you're willing to contribute to the tribe, you'll have a role in this mission. Rui excitedly patted his chest and promised. Just give the order, Chief. As long as it's within our capabilities, we'll spare no effort. This mission involves assisting Yu Fu in capturing wild horses. Your buzzards have a significant advantage in the air. Therefore, you must mobilize all the giant eagles of the tribe to carefully search the grasslands for traces of wild horse herds. Once discovered, immediately guide our cavalry there. At the same time, use the giant eagles to help the cavalry drive and encircle the horse herds. No problem, we can definitely do it. I'll make arrangements as soon as I return, Rui replied with confidence. Lu Fu and Rui exchanged glances, then firmly thumped each other's chests as a gesture of camaraderie and determination to cooperate. Both had joined the Han tribe at the same time, and now they were about to work side by side to complete this important mission. Their hearts were filled with anticipation and fighting spirit. The next morning, Dali, Yu Fu, Xue Tu, and Rui set out with 4 ox carts, 20 hand carts, 80 warriors, and 100 slaves in shackles, marching in a grand procession. They crossed the river directly via the Han tribe's wooden bridge, then followed the riverbank northward, steadily advancing toward the Salt Lake's iron mining area. Another day passed, and Shuda led 200 warriors along with over 200 members of the Li tribe back to the Han tribe safely. The more than 30 Li tribe members who had previously been detained by the Tree tribe were also released. Seeing that Li Wu had already led the entire tribe to join the Han tribe, they harbored no resentment and naturally integrated into this large family. During this time, the second season of rice seeds for the Han tribe had been sown. As it was summer, with ample rainfall, the seeds absorbed enough moisture and sprouted through the soil in just 3 days. In about 20 more days, these seedlings would grow into sturdy rice plants, and it would be time for the second round of transplanting. However, with the tribe's population continuously increasing, food supply gradually became a serious issue. To ensure everyone had enough to eat, you decided to further expand the rice cultivation area. After careful consideration, you chose the east bank of the small river as the direction for expansion. Previously, the Tree tribe was to the north, the Black Rat tribe to the east, and the Li tribe to the south. Now, all 3 tribes had been absorbed by the Han tribe. This vast area could be fully cultivated by the Han tribe to ensure an adequate food supply. Moreover, with the wooden bridge now in place, traveling back and forth between the 2 banks daily was no longer difficult. However, the river excavation project was massive, and conventional manual digging was too slow. You thought of using explosives to speed up the process. There was still plenty of sulfuric acid prepared earlier, but the nitric acid had been depleted during the salt mine blasting. Fortunately, saltpeter was unexpectedly discovered at the Salt Lake mining area, and you brought back several bags upon your return. This solved the problem of insufficient raw materials for making explosives. Over the next few days, you personally used a distillation crucible to prepare new nitric acid and also produced several jars of concentrated glycerin. However, as the production of explosives progressed, the tribe's stock of oil rapidly decreased. Thankfully, the output of soap, a byproduct, was also steadily increasing. At the same time, a new tool, the Luoyang shovel, was created under your guidance. This strange shovel in my hand, what exactly is it for? Shuda, holding a brand new bronze Luoyang shovel, looked at you with a puzzled expression. Shovels are naturally for digging soil, but this one is specifically used for drilling holes in the ground. You patiently explained. Drilling holes? Like boring into the ground? What's the point of drilling holes in the ground? Deshu chimed in curiously beside them. To dig a river, you replied succinctly. Drilling holes can dig a river? Shu De and Deshu exchanged glances, their eyes filled with astonishment and confusion. Right? Today, I'm going to introduce you to something, the explosives I made a few days ago. You know, that amazing stuff we used to blast open the rock cavern last time. Relying on manpower to dig a river is just too slow, so I plan to use explosives to blast one out. You explained seriously. Explosives? The thing that blasted open the rock cavern? Shu De and Deshu were shocked, but a flicker of excitement stirred within them. The chief was actually willing to share such a miraculous thing with them. It made them feel trusted. Within just 2 days, all the tribespeople had learned that the chief could create a miraculous substance called explosives and intended to use it to dig a river. It was said to be much faster than using human labor, though no one knew exactly how it would be done. On the morning of the 3rd day after the news spread, you led Deshu, Shu De, and others to the opposite bank of the river, ready to conduct an experiment on the amount of explosives needed. First, Shu De used the luoyang shovel to drill a vertical hole at the predetermined blast point. The hole had to be 10 centimeters in diameter and 4 meters deep, with the depth precisely measured using the scale on the wooden handle of the luoyang shovel. Once the hole was ready, you carefully filled a cylindrical clay pot with the on-site prepared nitroglycerin and slowly lowered the pot into the drilled blast hole. Then you used tree branches to set up a simple tripod directly above the hole, from which a piece of crushed blue brick was suspended with a thin hemp rope. This brick served as a simple yet effective vertical impact detonation device. With everything prepared, you led the group in conducting the first blast experiment. The charge this time was about 300 grams. You personally lowered the clay pot containing the explosive steadily to the bottom of the blast hole. Then, you carefully hung the brick tied to the rope on the tripod above the hole, positioning it 10 centimeters deep inside to prevent it from missing the hole when dropped. Next, you began pulling the rope and slowly retreated to a shelter 20 meters away, a trench-like pit that Deshu and his team had dug in advance. Several people were already lying inside, only their heads visible, watching you nervously as you approached. You handed the thin hemp rope to Shu De, instructing him to be responsible for the detonation. Shu De was taken aback. I don't know how. What's there not to know? Just hold the rope. When I tell you to let go, release it immediately, then lie down properly. You patiently taught him the method. But I'm afraid. Shu De's face turned pale, his hands gripping the rope tightly, his body trembling slightly. What's there to fear? You're a grown man. Hurry up and get on with it. You'll do it this time and next time. Deshu and the others will all have to try it themselves. You urged, both impatient and exasperated. Shu De, trembling, took the hemp rope, his hands clutching it tightly, palms drenched in sweat. With his other hand, he kept wiping the beads of sweat forming on his forehead. All right, everyone lie down. Shu De, listen for my command. I'll count to 3. When you hear 3, let go. Yes, I understand, Shu De replied, his voice trembling, his eyes fixed intently on you, not daring to breathe. 1, 2, 3. The moment he heard you shout 3, Rat's taut nerves snapped in an instant. Instinctively, he released his grip. Immediately, the brick suspended from the top of the blast hole plummeted straight down the vertical shaft, striking the pottery jar placed at the bottom with pinpoint accuracy. With a thunderous boom, the jar shattered instantly. The nitroglycerin inside, subjected to the violent impact, detonated in a flash. In that split second, countless clods of earth erupted in all directions like scattered blossoms, soaring high into the air. The ground around the blast hole was torn open into a massive crater over 3 meters in diameter, resembling a giant shell hole. You were the first to lift your head, shaking off the dirt, and called the others over to take a look. Together, you approached the blast site, staring in awe at the enormous pit in the ground. Though this was already their second time witnessing the power of explosives, being so close this time and experiencing the entire explosion firsthand left them utterly stunned. My goodness! These explosives are truly formidable. With just one blast, they created such a massive hole. If we had 10 tribesmen digging with shovels, it would take at least a full day to achieve the same. This is truly miraculous. Rat gazed at the crater, his eyes filled with amazement and reverence, unable to hold back his exclamation. Yes, now I finally understand how the chief plans to use explosives to dig the river. The chief probably intends to set a row of blast holes along the river's path, then blast out a series of large pits, and connect them to form the river channel. If that's the case, the speed of digging the river would be much faster. With sufficient materials, we could probably dig another drinking water river in just a few days. Big Tree looked thoughtfully at the crater before him, his eyes gleaming with excitement, as if he could already see a new drinking water river flowing vigorously before him. Smart! That's exactly the plan. You've all seen the power and effect of the explosives. Their strength is truly immense. As long as we master how to use them properly, we can dig several more drinking water rivers within a month. This way, we can plant another batch of rice this year, and by winter, we'll have stored enough grain and livestock feed. Then no one will have to worry about food and drink. Upon hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement, their hearts filled with hope and confidence for the future. They deeply understood that with the chief's wise decisions and leadership, coupled with the miraculous tool of explosives, the Han tribe would surely continue to develop and grow, marching toward a more prosperous and flourishing future. After testing the charge amount and explosion effect, and confirming the safe distance, the preparatory work was essentially complete. In the following days, you began to meticulously plan the land on the east bank of the small river. A wide road needed to be reserved opposite the bridgehead on the east bank to facilitate the passage of people and vehicles. Then, using this road as the central axis, you planned to clear 500 meters of paddy fields on either side, stretching 1,000 meters in length. Combined, the fields on both sides of the road would form a square measuring 1,000 meters on each side, totaling an area of 1,500 mu. This way, the total area of paddy fields reclaimed on the east and west banks this year would reach approximately 2,500 mu, sufficient to meet the tribe's grain storage needs for the year. The area near the river on the east bank was relatively flat, with trees not too densely packed, belonging to sparse woodland interspersed with some shrubs. However, to convert this area into paddy fields, some clearing work was still necessary. Thus, you urgently summoned the logging team working in the western mountain forest and had them start clearing the trees and shrubs in this area first. As for the thick tree roots, they would be directly blasted away using explosives. This method was far faster than manual excavation. The shrub roots could be dug out with hose. Once paddy fields were developed later, the constant water coverage would prevent any remaining roots from regrowing. While clearing the land through logging, you also had to lead a team to begin blasting operations on Xian's moat first. Digging the moat not only played a crucial role in protecting the city but also provided ample water sources for the land west of the city. This made it convenient to open up a vegetable plot on the western grassland, where various vegetables could be planted to diversify the tribe's food supply. Along the moat's course, Shuda and a few others diligently drilled blast holes using Luoyang drills, placing one every 4 meters. After a day of hard work, they had dug 50 blast holes, covering a 200-meter stretch. The next day, you personally mixed the explosives and carefully placed them at the bottom of the blast holes. Meanwhile, Deshu led a team to quickly dig simple shelters, and Shuda set up the detonation devices with his crew. The elders and Shu Wu had already notified the tribe in advance, instructing everyone to stay away from the blast site to ensure safety. Once everything was ready, you gathered 50 tribesmen to simultaneously detonate the blast points. Each of them held a detonation cord and lay in the simple shelters 30 meters away. To ensure accurate signal transmission, the method was changed from shouting to drumming. A large oxhide drum, previously made, was moved to a spot 50 meters behind the shelters. The signal was set as 3 drum beats. Upon hearing them, all the detonators would release their cords at once. Thus began a breathtaking prehistoric blast, as dramatic as an earth dragon upheaving. The next moment, a thunderous roar erupted as a 200-meter-long mound of soil surged up from the western section of the moat south of the city, resembling an earth dragon bursting forth. The sheer magnitude of the spectacle left all witnesses awestruck and trembling. Throughout the Han tribe, livestock led by Hui Shan and Ro Ro were so startled by the sudden explosion and vibrations that they crouched low, not daring to make a sound. However, the scene after the blast filled everyone with immense excitement and exhilaration. As the smoke and dust gradually settled, a 200-meter-long deep trench appeared strikingly on the original ground. What would have taken dozens of people weeks to dig was now formed instantly by the power of explosives. With just a bit of tidying up, water could be channeled directly into it. After the blast, Shuda quickly mobilized his team to press the slaves into action. They used small carts to meticulously collect the soil scattered around and piled it within the city area, preparing it for future construction of rammed earth walls. Thus, the Han tribe officially entered a phase of large-scale construction. With the addition of the Li tribe and the 2 tribes that had joined during the earlier Western campaign, the labor force was significantly bolstered. Seizing this opportunity, you reorganized the construction team specifically for building houses, expanding it directly to 30 construction groups capable of simultaneously erecting 30 rough dwellings, greatly accelerating the pace of housing construction. While ordinary tribesmen were bustling with building activities in the city, slaves toiled relentlessly digging the moat on the outskirts. All tasks were steadily and orderly progressing back on track, presenting the entire tribe with a scene of busy yet vibrant activity. Meanwhile, the mining team, which had been away for many days, sent back good news. After successfully reaching the Salt Lake area, they promptly began their work, first establishing a sturdy camp near the Salt Lake. At the same time, Yufu led the cavalry. All the warriors of the Hang tribe launched a large-scale hunting operation in the surrounding areas. They cleared out all the ferocious beasts one by one to ensure the smooth progress of the subsequent mining work. In the following days, Dali and Shuatu led the slaves in a full-scale excavation of magnetite. Cartloads of magnetite were continuously mined, transported to the riverbank, and piled up before being shipped by wooden boats via waterways to the Han tribe. On the other side, Yofu and Ingrue also began their work. First, they selected locations to set traps, and then cavalry and warriors from the Ing tribe drove herds of horses into these traps. Everything proceeded in an orderly manner. However, other tribes living on this land were suffering immensely, especially those who had traded with the Han tribe during the Chunhui period. Over the past few months, the Han tribe's pottery and white salt had become highly popular among the tribes, but white salt was consumed far too quickly, especially during the summer when people sweated profusely, accelerating its depletion. As a result, the tribes found themselves plunged back into the harsh, salt-scarce era. Having grown accustomed to the taste of white salt, the sudden halt in its supply was unbearable. Consequently, some tribes began considering the idea of seeking out the Han tribe to trade for more white salt. The first to take action was the Cha tribe, located in the Rumming Water Valley. With a population of around 400, they primarily relied on fishing for sustenance, which provided a relatively stable and ample food supply. However, due to their larger population, the Cha tribe consumed white salt much faster than others. By now, only the essential laborers in the Cha tribe could receive a small portion of white salt every couple of days, barely enough to taste any saltiness. Even so, their salt reserves were insufficient to last until the next Chunhun season. Chief Cha watched anxiously, realizing this situation was unsustainable and that they must find a way to locate the Han tribe for a trade. An elder in the tribe proposed a suggestion. Venturing alone was too dangerous, so why not rally several tribes to join forces? Greater numbers would mean more strength and mutual support along the way. Chief Cha agreed with this idea and immediately set off for the Xiong tribe, 2 days' journey outside of Luqing. The Xiong tribe lived in the mountains and relied solely on hunting for survival. Every member, young and old, was a fierce warrior. Yet, their situation was no better. Upon hearing Chief Cha's proposal, Chief Xiong Han agreed without hesitation, as his tribe's salt reserves were also dwindling. However, as they prepared to depart, the two chiefs faced a dilemma. They only knew the general direction of the Han tribe but not its exact location. They decided to start from the Rumming Water Valley and follow the path the Han tribe had taken when they left, hoping to find traces left behind along the way. Chief Xiong then grew concerned about what to trade for the salt. Chief Cha seemed prepared and calmly explained that the Han tribe had previously exchanged white salt for people, but they likely wouldn't accept such a trade now. Instead, he planned to send 10 warriors and 5 youths, along with some animal hides, for the exchange. If the Han tribe still wanted people, they would trade for 5 individuals first and figure out the rest later. After considering his own tribe's circumstances, Chief Xiong Han agreed to contribute 10 warriors and some animal hides as well. With their plans aligned, the two chiefs set off immediately. Along the way, they continuously persuaded other tribes to join them, and their group quickly grew like a rolling snowball. By the time they reached the Rumming Water Valley, their numbers had significantly increased. The group had expanded to 7 tribes with a total of 85 people. After resting for a day in Dreamwater Valley, 5 more tribes joined, pushing the number beyond 100. Everyone gathered, discussing and planning together, then set off northeastward through Dreamwater Valley. Along the way, they indeed found markings left by the Han tribe. Following these signs, they journeyed for several days until they encountered the Snake tribe's hunting party. At first, the Snake tribe spotted them from afar and mistook them for a large tribe sent to attack, causing quite a scare. Upon closer inspection, however, they recognized a few familiar faces from the spring gathering. The leader of the Fork tribe quickly stepped forward to ask if the Snake tribe knew the whereabouts of the Han tribe. The Snake tribe leader frowned thoughtfully and admitted they weren't sure, but mentioned that the Border tribe had a good relationship with the Han tribe and might know. So, the Han-seeking team followed the Snake tribe to find the Border tribe. When they finally arrived, everyone was taken aback. The men of the border tribe now wore their hair standing upright, a stark contrast to before. The border warriors, seeing these unexpected visitors, raised their spears warily. The leader of the philosophy tribe hurriedly stepped in to explain that these were all tribe members who had attended this year's spring gathering and had come to trade with the Han tribe. A border tribe warrior then proudly announced that their entire tribe had joined the Han tribe. Although they hadn't relocated yet, the main tribe was already building houses for them. The Fork tribe leader eagerly asked if they could be taken to the Han tribe to trade for salt. The border warrior frowned slightly and said they would need to ask first, cautioning that the Han tribe had set many traps ahead and it would be dangerous to go without a guide. Soon, Chang received the message but didn't dare make a decision on his own. He sent a warrior to inform the Han tribe's hunting patrol to relay the news. Meanwhile, the Han-seeking team was invited to rest temporarily with the border tribe. In the border tribe, the vast fields of hemp and the exquisite hemp bags crafted by the women left everyone in awe, their mouths agape. Chang, noticing their astonishment, smiled and told the snake tribe leader that they had willingly joined the Han tribe because the Han leader was incredibly skilled. He had created tools that made weaving much easier. Moreover, the Han tribe provided so much pottery and white salt that they had more than enough. Most importantly, if enemies threatened, the Han leader would send warriors to help defend them. After a day's rest with the border tribe, the Han tribe's hunting patrol finally arrived and informed them about the tribes coming to trade. That evening, you gathered several leaders to discuss the matter. Zhuda was the first to speak, suggesting they continue trading for salt using population, as the tribe had planted a lot of rice this year and could likely support 200 to 300 more people. However, as soon as he finished, the elder and Shu Wu voiced their opposition. The elder worriedly pointed out that the tribe had already taken in many new members this year, and everyone was busy building houses. With winter approaching and limited stored animal hides, adding more people might lead to shortages. Thus, they recommended trading white salt for animal hides instead. Listening to the debate, you sat quietly, lost in thought. After a while, Shuda waved a hand in front of your eyes and asked, "What were you thinking about just now? Should we still use population to trade for that white salt?" Snapping back to reality, you replied, "I've thought it over carefully. For now, we don't need to use population for the exchange. Have you all noticed something? This time, these people actually organized themselves into groups and came voluntarily. We need to be cautious. If we continue with human trafficking and it causes discontent among these tribes' new generations, they might gather a large force to attack us later. That would be really troublesome. So, it's better to use white salt directly to trade with them for other things." As the elder said, animal hides are a great option. Everyone found your analysis very reasonable and nodded in agreement. But just as they finished nodding and turned away, they noticed you had fallen deep into thought again. Rat Big couldn't help but ask once more, "What exactly are you still thinking about, Chief? Is there something even more important than this?" You lifted your head, your gaze firm as you looked at everyone. "I plan to make the methods and seeds for growing crops public, so that the tribes coming to trade can also learn how to cultivate food." As soon as you spoke these words, everyone widened their eyes in surprise. Handing over our technology to other tribes? Isn't that just cultivating competitors? But you smiled faintly and explained your thoughts. On this vast continent, although the Han tribe currently holds some advantages, if we truly wish to dominate the continent, we cannot only think of ourselves. If we don't share the farming techniques, agricultural tribes will spring up like mushrooms after rain. By that time, wherever crops are grown, people will remember that it was the Han tribe who taught them. They will all know that the Han tribe has a leader like a god. Moreover, even if other tribes learn to farm, they are merely clearing wasteland for the Han tribe. The Han tribe possesses advanced technologies like metallurgy, along with armor and long blades. Faced with tribes that have just learned to farm, they are in no position to be our rivals. Your words left Elder Shuda and Shu Wu utterly stunned. This was the first time they had heard you so bluntly express your ambition to conquer the continent. Shuda felt a surge of boiling excitement in his heart, believing that if the Han tribe could truly accomplish such a grand feat, it would be an immensely glorious achievement. However, Shu Wu and the elder leaned more toward stable development for the tribe, feeling that leading their own people to become better and better was already satisfying enough. They weren't entirely convinced by your idea, but you had a way to persuade these two old-timers. You spoke to them earnestly. "We possess strength that others envy, so we cannot seek only our own comfort. Even if we engage in conquest in the future, it will be to allow more people to live the same good lives as we do. In a way, this can also be considered helping them. Besides, conquest doesn't necessarily require fighting and killing. We can definitely use other methods to make the Han tribe stronger. For example, acquiring population through trade, or influencing other tribes through culture. And what you planned to do next was to establish a market in the Han tribe, spreading Han culture through commodities. For instance, stamping the Han tribe's totem and characters on pottery, cloth, and tools, so that those who purchase Han tribe goods are constantly exposed to Han culture in their daily lives, deeply remembering the Han tribe. This way, when we offer them a chance to join the Han tribe, they might just take the initiative. After hearing your explanation, the two old men still didn't fully understand, but they could sense that this seemed beneficial for the Han tribe as well. And so, the matter was settled. Afterward, you had the messenger hunting and patrol team warriors return to deliver the reply. Have them bring that group to the Han tribe tomorrow. I want to personally discuss this matter with them. Shortly after noon the next day, the news reached the border tribes. The warriors of the hunting patrol relayed your response. You agreed to trade with them again and explicitly stated that no population exchange would be required. Additionally, the Han tribe would teach them a new method of obtaining food. Anyone willing to learn was welcome. This news brought immense joy to the people of the various tribes, and they eagerly followed the patrol warriors toward the Han tribe. After a day's journey, the tribal alliance group finally arrived at the Han tribe. It was exactly noon when they reached their destination, and the Han tribe was busy harvesting peanuts at the time. This presented a perfect opportunity to showcase the results of cultivation to these visitors. The group of over 100 people was led directly to the main road east of the city site. On both sides of the road, they saw fields submerged in shallow water. Near the small river, there was a vast peanut field ready for harvest. In the paddies, many people were diligently transplanting rice seedlings, a task that had been ongoing for several days. However, transplanting seedlings across nearly 1,000 acres of rice fields remained a substantial undertaking. Members of the Han tribe bent over, carefully holding bundles of seedlings and inserting them one by one into the waterlogged fields. The sight left the 100+ people standing on the road utterly bewildered, their minds filled with confusion. One tribesman couldn't help but ask his companion, "What are they doing? Why aren't they hunting or gathering food, but instead sticking grass into the water?" The companion, equally perplexed, shook his head and replied, "I don't know either. I'm also wondering why they brought us here. Why aren't they trading salt with us yet?" For a moment, murmurs spread through the crowd, some complaining, some curious, and others carefully observing, trying to find answers. Just then, a crisp clapping sound drew everyone's attention. The female leader, wearing a bronze crown, along with 2 elders and a dozen young people, approached. These young individuals had been purchased from various tribes during the spring gathering and were now serving as temporary translators. Upon seeing your arrival, the crowd immediately fell silent, their gazes fixed on the young leader. Smiling slightly, you scanned the group and spoke slowly. "I know you've all come to trade for salt. Rest assured, the Han tribe has enough salt to supply everyone. There's no need to rush. Someone will take you to trade for salt shortly. However, I imagine you must be curious about why we brought you here and what our tribespeople are doing." After speaking, you glanced at the translators behind you, signaling them to convey your words to the crowd. As soon as your message was relayed, the 100+ people erupted into discussion again, speculating about the Han tribe's activities. Their curiosity was thoroughly piqued. Once the translators had finished, you raised a hand gently to quiet the crowd. When silence returned, you continued, "Perhaps some of you have already guessed. They are also obtaining food. We plant the seeds of edible plants, and when these plants grow and mature, they produce fruits we can eat, what we call grain." Your words were like a stone dropped into a calm lake, instantly causing a stir among the crowd. Everyone began discussing in astonishment. This was an entirely unheard of method of acquiring food in their understanding. Beyond hunting and gathering, could there really be such a miraculous method? If this were true, then wouldn't it mean that as much grain as they planted, they could eat as much as they wanted? They would never have to worry about going hungry again. Could this be the method the Han tribe was going to teach them for obtaining food? You smiled slightly at the astonished expressions of the crowd. Perhaps you find this unbelievable, and you may not fully trust that such a thing is possible. That's why I've brought you here to see for yourselves. Next, someone will take you to see the peanuts our Han tribe has cultivated. They are also an edible food. Once you see them with your own eyes, you'll understand. After speaking, you led the group toward the peanut field. At this time, the peanut plants had turned completely yellow, marking the perfect moment for harvest. The tribespeople preparing to harvest the peanuts stood in a neat row, moving slowly along the ridges of the field. As they walked, they bent down, pulling the peanuts directly out of the soil by the roots. Clusters of plump nuts were lifted from the earth and laid out neatly on the ridges to dry. According to tradition, these peanuts needed to dry for 2 days before being gathered in the square to be shelled or left to dry further in their shells until completely dried out. The 100 or so visitors, guided by their respective interpreters, followed closely behind the harvesting team, their eyes fixed intently on the peanuts being pulled from the soil, filled with curiosity. Some even picked up freshly harvested peanuts from the ground, eagerly peeling them and tasting the nuts inside. After tasting, they began asking their interpreters questions. How exactly were these peanuts planted? How long did it take to harvest them? How many peanuts could one plant produce? How many people could they feed? And so on. The dozen or so interpreters answered every question, explaining the cultivation methods of peanuts in detail, and even mentioning the growth duration. As for how much could be harvested and how many people it could feed, they weren't entirely sure. But the chieftain had said that peanuts were not the staple crop of the Han tribe. Rice, which they had long cultivated, was their main food source. Rice was flavorful, filling, and the favorite food of the Han tribe. Rice? Is that the grass planted in the water? A member of the Zhu tribe asked, looking puzzled. Yes, that's rice. Right now it's just sprouted a few leaves. When it fully matures, it will bear many grains. After drying and husking, it becomes edible rice. Rice is quite hard and needs to be cooked in a pot before eating. The interpreter from the Zhu tribe patiently explained. How long does rice take to grow? Does it yield as much as peanuts? Rice grows very quickly. From sowing to harvest, it only takes about 3 months, at most around 100 days, to reach harvest season. Moreover, rice yields are quite substantial. For example, the rice you see here, just one stalk produces enough rice to fill one person for a meal. And rice can be planted at least twice a year. This year, our Han tribe has already harvested 1 crop of rice. What's planted now is the second season, which will be harvested in the first month of autumn. This harvest will be enough to sustain our entire tribe through the entire winter. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. Most had already made up their minds. They must bring this cultivation technology back to their own tribes to solve their food supply issues. After the tour, you had Shuda exchange white salt with them, and the Han tribe also gained many goods in return. By evening mealtime, the Han tribe used the freshly harvested peanuts and rice to cook a light red porridge. To entertain these guests who had traveled from afar, the Han tribe members also ate peanuts today, rice porridge, along with fresh fish and meat. Some 2 or 3-year-old children opened their little mouths, happily waiting for their mothers to feed them porridge. The entire tribe was immersed in a warm and harmonious atmosphere. Is this the fruit of rice and peanuts? So this is how porridge is made, by boiling them with water. Truly tastes delicious. Why didn't I think of exchanging these with the Han tribe back then? Now I really regret it. You're so lucky to have been traded to the Han tribe, able to eat such delicious food every day without worrying about going hungry. A member of the one tribe said emotionally to his own tribesman who had been sold to the Han tribe during the spring gathering. Hee, of course. Life in the Han tribe is great now. We never go hungry, and soon we'll even wear clothes made of linen. These people, reunited after long separations from their respective tribes, were all chatting cheerfully about their recent experiences and discussing the wonderful life in the Han tribe. Just then, you walked out again, clapping your hands lightly to draw everyone's attention. You knew it was time to announce the establishment of the market. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on you. They all knew you had something to say. You revealed the Han tribe's plan to set up a market, scheduling it for the first 7 days of each month. The items for trade would no longer be limited to approved goods or people. Anything the Han tribe didn't have could be brought for exchange. Upon hearing this, the one tribe's trading team was overjoyed. They would no longer have to worry about what to trade, and even if their tribe was far from the Han tribe, they would have enough time to travel for trade. Additionally, you announced the news of providing seeds free of charge and promised to help everyone solve any problems encountered during cultivation. Farming tools could also be exchanged for goods. Your words eased everyone's worries. They all stood up and bowed to you, expressing their deep gratitude to the Han tribe. The next day, the trading teams from various tribes received seeds from the Han tribe and were each given an additional surprise. Only then did everyone set off on their return journeys. They were all eager to hurry back to their respective tribes, wanting to bring these seeds back quickly. After all, these things were enough to transform the fate of every tribe. That afternoon, the Salt Lake mining area sent another shipment of iron ore. After nearly half a month of continuous transport, this was the 7th trip. Each fully loaded shipment of iron ore weighed around 10 tons. By now, the Han tribe's iron ore reserves had reached nearly 100 tons. If this iron ore were smelted into steel, it would yield several dozen tons, enough for the Han tribe to use for a considerable period. You immediately instructed the 4 warriors escorting the boats. After this return trip, bring 1 more shipment of iron ore, and then the people at the iron mining area can withdraw. Have them join Yofu's team to bring the horse herd back as soon as possible. Also, halt all activities in the north this year, so everyone can spend the winter peacefully in the tribe. Hearing this, the 4 warriors operating the boats were delighted. They would soon be able to return home and reunite with their families, a prospect they naturally welcomed. 3 days later, Xianxia returned to the tribe and reported the good news of successfully capturing 329 wild horses. The entire Han tribe celebrated joyfully. With over 300 horses, the Han tribe could further expand its farmland, bringing more benefits to the tribe's development. The tribes that had just traded with the Han tribe were also immersed in happiness. With a population exceeding 400 people, the Cha tribe, primarily reliant on fishing for their livelihood, resides nestled among the ridges, led by Chief Cha. Savoring the rice with great relish, this novel food, though simply plain white rice, was eaten by the 2 with extraordinary delight. The white-haired elder chewed slowly, while inwardly marveling. This Han chieftain is truly selfless, to share such precious techniques with every tribe. Meanwhile, Xianxia was already planning the cultivation in his mind. His tribe relied solely on the water source. They must reclaim the wasteland as soon as possible, sow the seeds early, and strive to harvest a batch of grain before winter. At the same time, he needed to assign some people to spare time gathering more resources and visit the Han tribe's market to trade for pottery, as the tribe's supply of clay pots and bowls was still far from sufficient. Similarly, other tribes felt the same, none wanting to miss this golden opportunity to change their tribe's destiny. However, not every tribe was as fortunate as the Cha tribe with its uniquely advantageous geographical conditions. Thus, to ensure successful crop cultivation, some tribes began carefully scouting for suitable land around their territories, while others even went so far as to relocate from their original settlements. In the days that followed, every tribe bustled with fervent activity. Some were busy moving, searching for soil where grain could thrive. Others, unable to wait, had already begun tilling the fields, turning the soil shovel by shovel, as if unearthing not just dirt, but hope for the future. Still other tribes had started scouring their surroundings for items the Han tribe required. Animal hides, unique plants, lively animals, peculiar stones, and medicinal herbs for healing wounds. They meticulously collected these treasures, eagerly awaiting the market at the start of next month to trade them for the supplies their tribes urgently needed. Meanwhile, you and the Han tribe were far from idle, contemplating how to craft saleable goods and imprint them with the Han tribe's unique mark, so that Han culture could spread through these products. You had bronze branding irons with characters made, and every wooden bucket destined for sale was to be stamped with the words, "Made by Great Han," ensuring anyone would recognize it as a Han tribe product. You also innovated with other goods. Since the Han tribe had already produced a batch of foot-powered sand copying machines and mastered the flywheel technology for manual power, a spark of inspiration struck you. Guiding the carpentry group to utilize this technology, they quickly crafted a new device, the Naughty Potter's Wheel. This potter's wheel, fitted with a small flywheel and transmission crankshaft below, connected to a pedal at the very bottom. One could sit on a stool, gently press the pedal with their foot, and the wheel would start spinning, allowing them to shape the clay on it. With this potter's wheel, the Han tribe's pottery craftsmanship leaped forward, not only speeding up production but also resulting in more beautiful and refined ceramics. However, your goal in creating this wheel wasn't merely for aesthetic pottery. The ultimate aim was to imprint characters and add color to the clay. The process was straightforward. Coat the semi-dried clay mold with a layer of glaze slurry. White porcelain glaze was the easiest to make. Simply mix kaolin clay with water until it formed a slightly viscous glaze. Place the glaze in a bucket, and dip the semi-dried clay mold into it lightly, producing a white porcelain base. After drying again and firing in the kiln, the finished product emerged as snow-white ceramic ware. The method for glazes of other colors was similar, only differing in the pigment used. Thus, the Han tribe's pottery suddenly became vibrant and colorful. Is Banlin special? Finally, at the bottom of the ceramic bowl, use red glaze to imprint, made by the Han tribe, along with blessings like favorable weather for crops and abundance year after year. That's all it takes. When people eat from such bowls, each time they see the inscriptions, they can't help but recall the grain sacks of the Han tribe, which you also didn't overlook. Using branches of the red dyegrass, you stamped large Han characters on both sides of the sacks. For now, ceramic water containers, wooden buckets, and sacks, these 3 items are the Han tribe's most sought-after commodities. Indeed, these are the things every tribe coming to the market is sure to buy. In a little while, the variety of Han tribe's goods will become even more diverse. Iron pots and iron farming tools will gradually appear in the marketplace. The culture of the Han tribe will slowly spread. Later on, we can even have Yufu take these goods to sell in more distant places. Just as you were swamped with work, the large contingent led by Dali, Yofu, and Ingrue also returned. By this point, aside from Dashu, who was still mining at Babao Mountain, nearly all the Han tribe's forces were gathered at the settlement. The construction projects of the Han tribe would continue to progress steadily and orderly. After several months of hard work, 2 residential districts had been completed within the construction site, totaling 198 homes. Although only the initial decoration was finished, and doors and windows had yet to be installed, it was summer, so this didn't affect livability. You immediately gave the order for the children and married couples to move in first as the initial residents. The rest would be reassigned once more houses were built. Time quickly passed to the 2nd month of summer, the month of the full moon. The Han tribe had prepared the first batch of goods for sale. You guarded these goods, eagerly awaiting the arrival of the first customers. You waited at the market for 2 whole days, without a single tribe showing up. Though you felt a bit disheartened, you consoled yourself, thinking that the tribes had just received seeds and were busy clearing land, unable to spare the time to come just yet. But some tribespeople didn't share your patience, hanging their heads in dejection, feeling that the entire tribe's efforts had been in vain. On the 3rd day, figures finally appeared in the distance. Your spirits lifted instantly, and you immediately sent someone to check. Soon, the tribesperson returned excitedly to report. Those tribespeople had arrived, and this time nearly 300 of them had come. Overjoyed, you maintained a calm smile on your face, ready to welcome the guests. You had to make sure they felt the warmth and sincerity of our Han tribe. As the crowd drew closer, you recognized familiar faces from various tribes, and a heavy weight finally lifted from your heart. Your plan had taken its first successful step. Shuda, following your instructions, led a few tribespeople to greet the guests at the market entrance and guide them to where the goods were displayed. When the people from the tribe saw the exquisite ceramics, the buckets for water, and the inscribed sacks, their eyes lit up with amazement and envy. They had never imagined such items could be made so beautifully. Look at how beautifully the characters are written on this ceramic, and there are even colorful patterns. This must be very expensive, right? A tribesperson from the snake tribe whispered to their companion. Shuda laughed and explained to everyone, "These are all products of our Han tribe. Our chieftain says that as long as there's a need, everyone can exchange with their own goods. We've brought many fine items this time. Take your time to browse." The crowd gathered around, starting to pick out the goods they fancied. Datu, meanwhile, was busy negotiating prices with them. "According to the standard you set, 5 medium-sized animal hides. Can we exchange for a white porcelain bowl?" The tribesmen of the Shui tribe visibly winced at the request, but after gritting their teeth, they still exchanged a few. Just as the market trade was in full swing, a commotion suddenly erupted from a nearby stall. It turned out that a tribesman was arguing with someone from an external tribe. The outsider insisted on trading a type of deer hide for 2 clay pots and even wanted to exchange antlers for a white porcelain bowl. The tribesman felt the trade was unfair, and neither side would yield. Unable to resolve it, the tribesman angrily ran to you to complain. Upon hearing this, you grew suspicious. How could there be over 100 identical deer hides? Something felt off. When you saw the hides and horns with your own eyes, your eyes lit up. These weren't deer hides or antlers at all. They were clearly antelope hides and horns. Moreover, judging by the skinning technique and the flawless condition of the hides, these animals must have been raised, not hunted. Upon closer inspection, you couldn't contain your excitement. These were actually Saiga antelopes. What a treasure! If they could be raised, the Han tribe would have an endless supply of meat in the future. Clearing your throat, you said to the traders, Your hides are indeed excellent. Not a single hole in them. For that, I can offer you a better price. 2 hides for 3 clay pots, and a pair of horns for 1 porcelain bowl. However, I have one condition. Next time, you must bring me 100 live antelopes, around 2 to 3 years old, 20 males and 80 females. If you can't do this, the Han tribe will no longer trade with you. The other party was stunned upon hearing this and stammered that they couldn't make such a decision. Only their chieftain could agree. You didn't press them further and waved your hand, instructing your tribesmen to proceed with the agreed-upon exchange. This time, aside from the matter with the Sharp-Horn tribe, many other tribes came to trade. The Lien tribe brought crushed stones, the Snake tribe offered medicinal herbs, and there was even a strange-looking type of quicklime that you thought would be perfect for pickling vegetables in the future. The Golden Rooster tribe brought golden vine, the Pig tribe offered brown sugar, the Tan tribe brought animals, the Jingu tribe contributed anesthetic mushrooms, and the Insert tribe provided fish. Skins, the Han tribe accepted them all. You also purchased 2 skilled painters from the One tribe and assigned them to the pottery department to create artwork, planning to name them Wenhui and Wanyan. Although the market was originally planned for 7 days, some tribes arrived late, so it only lasted 2. Even after it ended, tribes still came to trade. Some smaller tribes, having heard about the Han tribe's rice cultivation, traveled from afar to seek knowledge and seeds, all of which you agreed to. Half a month later, the Han tribe's fire-resistant bricks were ready, and you began designing a new type of iron-smelting furnace. Though the construction process was complex and progressed slow, you understood that quality was paramount and had to be taken step by step. At the beginning of the 4th month of summer, the Han tribe bustlingly held its second market. Most tribes came this time to learn about rice planting and post-planting management. The Xianxia tribe, living near water, had ideal conditions for rice cultivation and the largest planting area. They had already completed transplanting. Other tribes were also working hard to catch up. Surprisingly, the Sharp-Horn tribe did not show up, which displeased the Han tribe's leaders. Shuda, being impulsive, even wanted to lead a group to seize the Saiga antelopes by force. However, you felt it was better to wait and see. At this market, you made another discovery. Some small tribes brought wild honey. Those were all good items, immediately purchased at high prices. And there were loofahs, radishes, tomatoes, long cowpeas, and all sorts of melons, fruits, and vegetables. When you saw them, your eyes widened, and you bought them all at premium prices, not forgetting to pre-order seeds. Later, the tribe would be able to plant these fresh novelties. As for the Sharp-Horn tribe, after returning, their chieftain saw the exquisite ceramic vessels and precious white salt they had acquired from afar, and his heart swelled with joy. But before his joy could fully settle, he heard from the trading team about the Han tribe's request for 100 live antelopes. Instantly, the smile vanished from his face. These antelopes were the tribe's treasures, weren't they? If they refused, they feared the Han tribe would stop selling them white salt in the future. So, he quickly summoned the tribe's elders to discuss a plan. In the end, they decided to send the antelopes, but only this once. From then on, they would stick to trading with animal hides. Subsequently, the Sharp-Horn tribe spent nearly half a month in intense preparation, gathering fodder, drying and bundling it, and carefully selecting 40 adult male tribesmen to escort the 100 antelopes. To avoid detection, they deliberately avoided the market days of other tribes, choosing instead remote, seldom-traveled paths. They set out cautiously toward the Han tribe. Meanwhile, in the Han tribe, under your careful arrangements, a population census and family reorganization were underway. Women from the Fire tribe were being paired with men from the Han tribe. The disabled and women who had lost their fertility were also given suitable arrangements, ensuring everyone could lead a stable life. After the residences were built, the workers didn't rest. They immediately began constructing warehouses in the storage area, livestock pens in the breeding zone, and other public facilities. Building the warehouses was no easy task. 12 warehouses were to be constructed in an area measuring 110 meters per side. With such a wide span, pillars had to be erected in the middle to support the roofs. You racked your brains to design detailed construction steps and ingeniously invented a lever-operated hoist. Once the hoist was put to use, the speed of laying foundations increased significantly. Just as the foundations were rising above ground level, the Sharp-Horn tribe's antelope delivery team arrived. Upon hearing the news, you rushed to see. When you laid eyes on the lively, energetic antelopes, a weight lifted from your heart, and you silently rejoiced that your inference had been correct. A representative from the Sharp-Horn tribe stepped forward and said, "Since these are live antelopes, the price must be increased." 1 antelope for 5 ceramic pots or 5 large bowls of white salt. After a moment's thought, you found this reasonable and nodded in agreement. Since they had few people, carrying too many ceramic pots would be inconvenient, so most of the payment was made in bowls and white salt, with only a small portion in ceramic pots. Once the transaction was smoothly completed, the Sharp-Horn tribe departed with their goods, and the Han tribe continued its construction efforts. The antelopes were handed over to specialized tribesmen for herding. Time flew by, and before long, autumn arrived. The Han tribe's third market was about to begin, but this time, the trading volume dropped significantly. You understood clearly, everyone was busy stockpiling food for the winter. So, you kindly taught the various tribes how to make cured meat. As a result, the tribes began purchasing white salt in large quantities again. At the same time, the Han tribe's ceramic industry underwent adjustments, shifting to a small batch, high-quality production model. They started firing more exquisite pieces. After all, the 2 fossils you had acquired weren't just for show. They needed to be put to good use. The over 2,000 acres of hemp fields in the border tribe had yielded 4 harvests this year. Considering future development, you advised them to hold off on further harvesting until the seeds matured. Thus, the entire border tribe relocated back to the Han tribe. It was also around this time. The restless Yufu had been found. He said he had an idea and wanted your decision. He wished to lead a team to form a trade caravan, carrying the remaining pottery and white salt, and make another trip east of the river. His goal was to eventually set up an eastern market there, operating once at the start and once at the end of each month, so that the Han tribe's culture could spread further. It was already autumn by then, and many edible melons and fruits had ripened. This journey might even bring back some vegetables or seeds from the east. After some thought, you agreed. You assigned Yofu 40 male tribesmen, 2 ox carts filled with goods from along the river, and provided each person with a mount to enable exploration of more distant lands, as long as they could return before winter. A few special individuals joined the team, 2 youths from the former Xianxia tribe, who had mastered Han language and characters the best, and 2 youths from the Ying tribe, who brought their own raised Azuka giant eagles. With these 4, even if the team traveled far, messages could be sent via eagle. Yofu was very pleased with your arrangements and soon set off with the exploration team. Meanwhile, you continued supervising the city's construction. The main project at the time was the warehouse. Initially, progress was swift due to ample labor, but as the walls grew taller, the pace gradually slowed. To address this, you had the carpentry team hastily produce pulleys in 2 days. Once ready, they were immediately given to the construction team. With the aid of pulleys, warehouse construction sped up significantly. Finally, with a week left till month's end, the warehouse was completed, tall and spacious, covering 600 square meters, laying valuable experience for future multi-story buildings. As the first month of autumn ended, the intense summer heat gradually faded, and a chill set in during mornings and evenings. You became one of the first in the tribe to wear woolen clothing, trousers made of woolen cloth, a cross-collar, hip-length short robe, and a pair of short leather boots, making you look quite sharp. However, such attire wasn't for everyone. Since the Bian tribe's return, they had been producing hemp sacks, but with limited looms, neither hemp nor wool cloth could yet be widely available. Only a few tribal leaders could manage a set, along with newborn infants. Fortunately, the tribe wasn't suffering from cold, so no one was left freezing. Soon, the Han tribe's market opened once more. Tribes that had received rice seeds returned to learn, while smaller tribes brought the vegetable seeds you had previously ordered, trading them for pottery and white salt. Since the city walls weren't yet finished, the inner view of the Han tribe's settlement was fully exposed to them. They had previously admired the Han tribe's neat brick houses from afar, but the newly erected towering warehouse stood out strikingly. They were astonished, unable to imagine how such a massive structure was built or how warm it would be inside during winter. Nevertheless, the team leaders didn't forget their purpose. Hearing that the Han tribe's rice had ripened, they hurried to observe and learn the harvesting methods. By then, the paddies had long been drained, dried for 7 or 8 days, so the soft mud had firmed up a bit. The rice stalks remained yellow-green, but the ears had turned a golden yellow. The visiting trade team members were guided closely to watch the Han tribe harvest rice up close. You even allowed them to try harvesting a section with sickles themselves, not to use them as free labor, but to teach them sickle use, harvesting techniques, and key considerations. Those willing to help with work during these days were provided food by the Han tribe throughout the 7-day market period. They learned how to harvest rice, sun-dry the husks, bag and store the grains. By the final day of the market, these people even tasted freshly cooked rice. Now they had a complete understanding of the entire harvesting process. At this market, the most sold items were gunny sacks, followed by white salt and then bronze sickles. A metal sickle cost 2 large animal hides. Although the tribes found it painful, for the sake of their rice harvest, they had no choice but to grit their teeth and buy them. With the week-long market concluded, the Han tribe's rice had been dried and stored in granaries. The harvest from over 900 acres of rice fields was enough to feed the entire tribe through the winter. Moreover, the Han tribe had other meat reserves. Although livestock farming was still in its early stages, pigs and saiga antelopes couldn't be slaughtered yet, and cattle were needed for plowing. The several thousand raised hedgehogs and guinea fowl could continuously supply eggs, and rabbits also provided some meat. Another piece of good news: the migratory sea fish that swam upstream to spawn last year had reappeared in the river. Now, except for the construction team building the breeding farm, most people had little to do. So, you assign some of them to a fishing team to increase fishing efforts and stockpile more meat for the long winter. At this point, you silently calculated. Such a large-scale fish migration suggested that this place might be close to the sea estuary. Being near the sea had many advantages. The ocean offered abundant resources. If the Han tribe could expand to the coast in the future, the supply of white salt would never run out. Moreover, as the Han tribe grew, if food became insufficient, they could build ships to harvest vast marine resources, develop long-distance trade, and make the tribe increasingly prosperous. You just didn't know how far Yufu's expedition had reached this time, whether he would find the sea. But you didn't hold out too much hope. Tribal development couldn't stop either. Soon after, you began planning the construction of the Han tribe's breeding facilities. The new breeding farms would be built to the same standard as the granaries, though fewer in number. You didn't plan to build a dedicated rabbit farm, as the Han tribe now had better alternatives like saiga antelopes. Once the antelope herds expanded, rabbits would inevitably be phased out. Not that rabbits would be entirely abandoned, they would be distributed among households for families to raise themselves as an additional food source. With 2 months left before winter, you ordered the construction team to build at least 2 more breeding farms. This was the minimum requirement. The Han tribe's 300-plus horses would need 1 stable. Cattle, deer, sheep, pigs, and alpacas were still few in number and could be housed together temporarily. Some rabbits would be slaughtered before winter, while the rest would be distributed to households. No need for dedicated housing. After arranging these matters, you urged the construction of the blast furnace, preparing iron smelting materials, stockpiling or bricks and charcoal, along with supporting tall frames and lifting equipment. Since this blast furnace was top-loaded, it needed to handle large quantities of materials quickly. Fortunately, from earlier granary construction, the Han tribe already had the technical foundation. Large wooden structures and labor-saving pulley systems were well developed, making the construction relatively straightforward. However, since these devices were meant for iron smelting and needed to lift heavy loads, you ordered the production of thicker ropes and pulleys made entirely of metal. The only drawback was the lack of chains. Iron chains would have been even better. Days passed, and various construction projects progressed intensively. Just halfway through the 2nd month of autumn, the team led by Yofu arrived again at the Lu tribe, the tribe known for raising spotted pigs. Last time, Yofu had traded dozens of pigs for some pottery and white salt. Since then, the white salt had been used up quickly. When Yofu left last time, he said he'd return soon, but months had passed with no sign of him. The Lu tribe's leader, Ju, was growing anxious. Day after day, they waited for Yofu to come. Just as they were on the verge of despair, Yofu suddenly appeared in the territory of the Lu tribe. A tribesman hurriedly ran to inform Chief Ju. The tribe that sold white salt last time has returned. This time, they brought 2 large carts, and they are all riding horses, no women among them. Upon hearing this, Ju stood up excitedly. "Quick, take me to see them. I wonder how much they've brought. If they leave this time, they might not come back again this year." Not far away, Ju spotted Yofu on horseback. "You've finally come. Our white salt is almost gone. If you hadn't shown up, we wouldn't have been able to carry on." Yofu smiled and told Ju that he had brought plenty of salt this time, enough for the trade. However, he explained that he had now joined the powerful Han tribe, and according to their leader's instructions, this would likely be their last trade here. Ju grew anxious immediately. "If you don't come anymore, how will we exchange goods in the future?" Yofu quickly clarified. "Our leader has said that the Han tribe will regularly hold markets. From now on, if you wish to trade, you can go there yourselves." He then provided Zhu with all the details about the trade and the location of the Han tribe, which somewhat eased Zhu's mind. Subsequently, the two negotiated the quantity for this exchange. The Lu tribe was willing to offer 60 pigs in exchange for pottery and white salt. Yu Fu did not agree immediately, as he still had to travel further and could only take the 60 pigs on his return to the city. The chief did not object but expressed curiosity about how long it would take for Yu Fu to return from his journey south. Yu Fu assured him that he would be back within a month, though he was uncertain about what other tribes lay further south. Chief Zhu himself had no clear idea, but he recalled stories from the tribe's deceased elders. Long ago, their tribe had migrated from the south, where there was a place full of water, stretching as far as the eye could see. Yu Fu's interest was piqued by this description. His intuition told him that this watery place might be home to many people, and if he could reach it, he was sure to make significant gains. With this in mind, Yu Fu left some pottery and white salt with the Lu tribe as a deposit, then led his team southward. Time was tight. They had already been traveling for nearly a month and had at most half a month left before they had to turn back. Every moment counted. In the following days, Yu Fu's team pressed on almost without rest, heading straight for the rumored watery place. Along the way, they encountered many tribes. Seeing a group composed entirely of strong men riding beasts and pulling two mobile houses, these tribes were terrified and kept their distance, with no one daring to approach. Fortunately, the intimidating group did not linger, allowing the local tribes to breathe a sigh of relief. After 11 days of rapid travel from the Lu tribe, the team reached the end of the road. It wasn't an ocean or a large lake but a cliff edge. The cliff was less than 50 meters high but very steep. From the edge, they could clearly see a vast grassland below, teeming with countless herds of cattle, sheep, horses, and deer grazing. To the east lay an enormous lake, its waters reflecting the blue sky and white clouds, turning it a sky-blue hue. The lake surface was dotted with numerous waterbirds. Massive giant geese, gray-green wild ducks with wingspans of about 1 meter, and flamingos with slender, long legs. These birds were busy preying on fish returning to spawn. Just then, 2 Azuka giant eagles cried out in the sky. Yu Fu withdrew his gaze from the distance and said to his team, "Let's rest here today. Tomorrow we'll find a way down to explore." The next day, guided by the 2 scout eagles, Yu Fu and his team found a pass about 40 li to the west of the cliff. From there, heading south would lead them into the expansive grassland. It took them an entire day to make their way into the plains. The members of Yu Fu's merchant expedition dared not dismount, remaining constantly vigilant so they could quickly flee if danger arose. Yu Fu had even ordered his team that if absolutely necessary, they could abandon the ox carts and goods to escape. They had prepared for the worst. By evening, they finally encountered a nomadic tribe, the Xianxia tribe. This tribe of about 500 people primarily survived through herding. When the two groups made contact, the women of the Xianxia tribe were carrying baskets to collect cow and horse dung, which contained undigested grass fragments that could be dried and used as winter fuel. The men, meanwhile, patrolled the pastures on horseback, each carrying a short bow and a dozen or so crude arrows. These men wore their hair in 2 braids beside their cheeks, bare-chested with simple animal hides or rough wool wraps around their waists. As Yu Fu led his team closer, over a dozen fierce sheepdogs charged at them, baring their teeth and barking wildly, warning the strangers to keep their distance. Soon, the patrolling warriors noticed the commotion. Riding swift horses, they quickly approached, drawing their bows and confronting the group from about 50 or 60 meters away. One warrior from the Xianxia tribe shouted at Yu Fu, "Which tribe are you from? What are you doing here?" But the distance between them was too great, with a pack of snarling dogs in between, and the language barrier made communication impossible. Yu Fu dismounted and cautiously took a few steps forward, raising both hands to show he was unarmed. However, the warrior remained highly alert and shot an arrow right in front of Yu Fu's feet as a warning not to come closer. Fortunately, Yu Fu, experienced in dealing with various tribes, knew exactly how to handle the situation. He immediately instructed his men, "A few of you dismount without weapons. Bring some large pottery from the ox carts to show them." Soon, 5 team members descended, holding the largest pieces of pottery as they advanced to stand beside Yu Fu. Yu Fu then called out to the opposing group, "We're here to trade. Do you want this pottery? If not, we'll leave." As he shouted, he pointed at the pottery beside him. Though the Xianxia warriors couldn't understand his words, their eyes lit up at the sight of the pottery. The earthen red vessels, glazed in white or dark red, shimmered in the setting sun. They had never seen such items but instantly recognized them as treasures. The warriors quickly reacted, shouting to restrain the sheepdogs before riding their large yellow horses toward Yofu's group. Once they drew near, a young man who appeared to be the squad leader dismounted, ready to communicate with Yofu. Smiling warmly, Yofu retrieved a snakeskin water pouch from his waist and poured some water into a pottery pot. The water sloshed inside without spilling a drop. The squad leader immediately understood the vessel's purpose and recognized that his tribe desperately needed such containers. He called over a companion, handed him the pottery, and instructed him to ride back and show it to the chieftain. The warrior took the pottery, spurred his horse, and galloped toward the tribe's tent settlement. He soon found the chieftain, Ili, near a pen, where he was squatting to assist a mare in labor. The warrior hurriedly reported what he had seen and handed the pottery to the chieftain. Ili examined the container, his eyes gleaming with interest. "Come, take me to see," he said, then leaped onto a black steed and followed the warrior northward. The round trip took about half an hour, and the sun was nearly set. Just as Yofu and his men were growing impatient, 2 horses, one red and one black, came galloping from the distance with 2 riders, capturing everyone's attention. Ili reined in his horse sharply, dismounted, and joined the squad leader, scrutinizing Yofu and his party. He first assessed their unusual clothing, peculiar horses, and mobile tents. After taking another look at the various pottery items in their hands, he felt more assured. He motioned for his tribesmen to step back a little, then signaled for Yofu and the others to come forward. Yofu quickly approached with his men. Seeing that everyone was deferring to Ili, he realized this must be their leader. He immediately placed a hand over his chest and gave a slight bow. "Respected leader, we are a trading caravan from the north. We wish to trade with your tribe, exchanging our goods for cattle, horses, and animal products. Would that be acceptable?" As he spoke, he had his companions bring out a set of ceramic products, ranging from large pottery jars to small porcelain bowls, and most importantly, white salt. He then pointed toward the Xianxia tribe's horses and livestock, indicating his desire to exchange for them. Ili immediately understood Yofu's intentions. Without committing right away, he carefully inspected each item. The exquisite ceramics delighted him. Picking up a white porcelain bowl, he imagined drinking milk from it and felt a surge of joy. Finally, his eyes fell on a small bowl of white salt. He pointed at it curiously and made an inquiring sound. Seeing this, Yofu dipped his finger into the salt and tasted it, gesturing for Ili to do the same. As expected, almost everyone who tasted the Han tribe's pure white salt for the first time was instantly captivated by its flavor. Ili was no exception. Through a combination of gestures and broken communication, Ili learned that Yofu had many more such treasures. He warmly invited them to visit the Xianxia tribe settlement. By then, the sun had set, and darkness was quickly descending. Yofu decided to stay for the night, taking the opportunity to learn more about these grassland tribes and understand what goods they needed most. This way, on future visits, they could bring suitable merchandise. The group soon arrived at the tribe. In the circular clearing surrounded by over a dozen large tents, several bonfires were lit. With a wave of Ili's hand, tribesmen brought out whole slaughtered sheep and began roasting them over the flames. The plump, tender meat sizzled under the fire's embrace, releasing an irresistible aroma. Yofu had his men portion out several bowls of white salt and distribute them around the fires. The girls of the Xianxia tribe watched the Han tribe's trading party with curiosity. They spread out animal skins and sat around the bonfires, everyone seated on the ground. They sliced the nearly roasted mutton and placed it on the hides. Yofu sat beside Ili and had his men bring out small packets of chili powder, sprinkling it over the cooked mutton along with white salt. The two ate with great relish. Ili gasped from the spiciness of the chili but exclaimed loudly about how satisfying it was. Later, Ili had his tribesmen bring out goats and cow's milk to entertain Yofu and his party. "Brother Yofu," Ili stammered in the few Han words he had just learned. "Your Han tribe's pottery, white salt, and especially the chili are incredible. You must trade us more of these." "You're too kind, leader Ili," Yofu replied. "Rest assured, as long as your tribe can provide what I need, I believe our trade will be very pleasant." The two then began discussing prices. Yofu started without hesitation. "See those oxen we use to pull our carts? One ox can be exchanged for 2 pottery jars. If it's a cow, it's worth 3. For sheep, 2 sheep for 1 pottery jar. Alternatively, 1 sheep can be traded for 2 large bowls of white salt. Horses, however, can only be exchanged for salt, 1 horse for 5 bowls like this. We also accept other animal pelts, as well as ox horns, tendons, and hides, which can be traded for pottery. In truth, these prices were made up on the spot and set exorbitantly high. This time, Yofu's role had changed. He was now a member of the Han tribe, responsible for securing the best deals for his people. Hearing Yofu's quote, Ili couldn't help but wince at the steep cost. The Han tribe's goods were truly excellent, but the prices were really hard to stomach. Pottery was manageable since it wasn't a consumable item. But precious white salt could only be exchanged for horses. How many horses would it take to feed the tribe for a year? Just thinking about it made his heart ache. Brother Yufu was reasonable in other matters, but this white salt. If it all had to be traded for horses, they couldn't possibly give away all their horses. Could we use cattle and sheep for the exchange as well? That's not entirely out of the question, but horses must account for over 40% of the total, and they must be fully grown. Our Han tribe also has a great need for horses. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain things to the chieftain when I return. He might not let me come again next time, and then it would be difficult for you to get white salt. All right, then it's settled. We'll trade at this price tomorrow. Ili thought for a moment, found it acceptable, and agreed. With the price negotiated, the evening meal drew to a close after a bonfire performance. When it was time to sleep, Ili allocated 2 tents for the Han tribe's trading party to stay in and even invited Yofu to share his own large tent. Lu Fu's heart immediately filled with suspicion, but he couldn't refuse the other's hospitality, so he reluctantly agreed. He cautiously slipped into the fur blanket, but to his surprise, the next moment, he bolted upright from the bed. 2 completely naked women had slipped under his blanket. One was Ili's woman. The other was Ili's eldest daughter. Ili hurriedly explained from outside the tent. This is a tradition among the grassland people to improve bloodlines. They often do this when encountering strangers. Lu Fu was encountering this custom for the first time. Back in the mountains, he only knew of spring matchmaking rituals. However, he and the men of the trading party had been on the road for over a month and were long pent up. Faced with women offering themselves willingly, he immediately embraced them both and began to get intimate. And it wasn't just this large tent. The other 2 tents housing the Han tribe's trading party had been arranged the same way. Across the grassland, indescribable sounds echoed for a full 2 minutes before gradually quieting down. The next day, Yofu and Ili successfully completed their trade. The Yuyang tribe, with over 500 people, bought about 100 pots, more than 1,000 ceramic bowls, and exchanged for 4 large barrels of white salt, even purchasing the barrels along with the salt. Yofu's gains were substantial: 50 bulls and cows, 550 white curly-horned sheep, 350 fully grown horses of various colors, mostly mares, as well as many cattle and sheep hides, ox horns, and sinews. Such a large haul set the trading party's blood boiling. If they could safely bring the livestock back to Bulu, they would surely be heavily rewarded by the chieftain and hailed as heroes by their tribe. Yofu was also pleased, but only half of the goods from the 2 large carts had been sold. He planned to find another nomadic tribe to sell the remaining goods. To keep the chieftain from worrying, he found 2 youths skilled in writing Han characters and had them write their discoveries on sheepskin with charcoal. The location of the Great Lake and the grasslands, details about the nomadic tribes, the specifics of this trade, and their future plans. Then, he tied this leather letter to the leg of an Azuka giant eagle and sent it back to the tribe to deliver the message. The Azuka giant eagle was sensitive to magnetic fields. Though the journey was long, its flight was swift, and the message would arrive in at most 2 days. After releasing the giant eagle, the trading party continued on their way. They traveled with 2 ox carts, 40 zebras and antelopes, and the newly acquired herd of 950 cattle, horses, and sheep. With only 40 people, the trading party struggled to manage the herd. Though the Han tribesmen had herded horses in the tribe's pastures, they had never driven such a large herd of animals before. Although the livestock were domesticated and relatively docile, with few handlers and no herding dogs, the herd was often harassed by wolves and other wild beasts. In just 1 day, the party lost over 20 sheep. The warriors were equipped with longbows, but lacking training in mounted archery, they couldn't effectively use them on horseback. Helpless against the beasts' attacks, the beasts were cunning, even resorting to guerrilla tactics. The warriors could only watch as the sheep were carried away. Many began to waver, thinking they should take their gains back to the tribe. Continuing like this would only lead to greater losses. Hearing their words, Yofu also hesitated. Gazing at the numerous cattle, horses, sheep, and remaining goods, he let out a long sigh, deciding to press on for one more day. If no other nomadic tribes were found, they would turn back. The team agreed to this compromise. By evening, they arrived at a lush, grassy spot by the lake, letting the herds drink and graze. Apart from those on horseback keeping watch, the rest took turns resting by the lake, refilling their food and water supplies, and shooting waterfowl for dinner. Just then, a few strangers appeared nearby. Leading them was a bare-chested young man of about 17 or 18, his muscles taut, an animal skin wrap around his waist, riding a chestnut horse. He was accompanied by 3 young women on horseback, 2 of them holding children in their arms, and dozens of sheepdogs, driving nearly 100 sheep. Lin had also come to the lake to water his sheep and hunt waterfowl for food, but he and Yofu's group did not interact. He galloped along the lakeside, drawing his bow and aiming at a low-flying wild duck. The warriors on Yofu's side, seeing his arrow shoot into the sky but miss the duck, couldn't help but scoff. Yet the next moment the duck cried out in pain, struck by the arrow. It turned out, Lin had accurately predicted the duck's flight path in advance. The wounded duck struggled, gliding downward, as several sheepdogs swiftly chased after it, retrieving the duck and bringing it to Lin, wagging their tails and barking eagerly. This scene filled the caravan members with envy. One complained about the tribe's young wolves, wondering when they could be trained like that. Another analyzed, wolves and dogs are different breeds. Dogs wag their tails and bark, while wolves only howl. Someone suggested trading with Lin for a few dogs, thinking they could help guard the herds and perhaps even breed with the tribe's wolves to produce wolf dogs. Yofu thought it made sense, so he sent his brother Yui with a pottery vessel and a small bag of white salt to test the waters. Yui rode over, and Lin, seeing someone approach, raised his bow warily. Yui expressed his desire to trade the pottery and salt for dogs, tossing the salt to Lin. Lin caught the bag, opened it, and saw the white powder, immediately looking puzzled. When he looked up, his faint red pupils startled Yui. But Yui steadied himself, gesturing for Lin to taste it. Hesitating, Lin first let a sheepdog lick it, and when the dog showed no ill effects, he tasted a little himself. Only then did he understand it was salt, quickly breaking into a smile at Yui. The two communicated through gestures, Yui learning Lin's name, and Lin understanding their desire to trade for dogs. Lin was tempted, but these dogs were raised by him personally. Even if he agreed, the dogs wouldn't follow them, common knowledge among the grassland people. Regretfully, Lin tossed the salt back to Yui, spreading his hands to show it was impossible. Yui returned empty-handed. Lin, meanwhile, prepared to leave with the women and sheep to make camp. Yui went back and reported the situation to Yofu. Yofu frowned. It was almost dark, and their 40 people had to look after nearly 1,000 cattle, horses, and sheep, without proper pens for the sheep. He had no idea how many they might lose overnight. After a moment's thought, Yofu snatched the salt bag from Yui, spurred his horse, and caught up with Lin's group. Hearing the hoofbeats, Lin stopped. Yofu threw the salt bag to him, proposing that Lin and his dogs stay with them for the night, helping to guard the sheep and study the enclosure. Lin understood the meaning and happily agreed. So the two groups joined forces, finding a safe spot to camp, using ropes and large nets to make a simple sheep pen, driving the cattle, horses, and sheep inside. For dinner, they ate together, using the Han tribe's pottery pot to stew a salted old duck soup. Lin had never tasted such food before. They had no pottery nor enough water to make stew. Lin and the women learned to use chopsticks to eat the meat and drink the soup, gradually growing familiar with Yofu and his group, starting to chat through gestures. Lin said he originally came from a large tribe of 700 or 800 people. But because of his innate red pupils, he was regarded by the shaman of the tribe as an ill omen to the community. Some wanted to kill him while others sought to drive him away. His mother, left with no choice, had to agree to his exile. Before he left, she gave him 3 dogs she had raised, a young horse, and a few sheep, urging him not to wander too far. Later, while herding, she secretly gave him a few more sheep. And so, Lin began his life as a wanderer, becoming a wild man of the grasslands. Over the years, he crafted bows and arrows, honed extraordinary archery skills, captured several wild horses, and expanded his flock to nearly 100 sheep. His dogs also multiplied to over 30. Feeling he could now support a family, he traded sheep with some smaller tribes for 3 women. He now had 2 children, and one of the women was pregnant. Upon learning about Lin's situation, Yofu became intrigued. Lin was a true native of the grasslands, fluent in many tribal languages and skilled in both archery and construction. A rare talent for the Han tribe. Yofu began to win him over, asking how he planned to survive the winter with a pregnant woman and young children. Lin mentioned knowing a small grove where he could chop firewood and find shrubs to feed the sheep. But Yofu told him that the Han tribe had sturdy houses, ample food, and a river for water, making it a safer place to spend the winter. Lin grew wary, suspecting Yofu wanted his sheep and dogs. Yofu smiled, first nodding, then shaking his head, saying that if he wanted sheep, he could trade with larger tribes. The Han tribe had dogs, but they were mostly untrained and lacked the intelligence of Lin's. This reasoning made sense to Lin, and he grew curious about the tribe Yofu described, inquiring about its location, population, and livestock numbers. Yofu explained that the Han tribe was located in the northern mountains, at least a month's journey away, with a population of nearly 3,000 people. Besides the trading caravans, the tribe currently had a few hundred livestock. Lin was surprised, thinking that with 3,000 people and only a few hundred cattle and sheep, they would surely starve in winter. He had seen large tribes of thousands with tens of thousands of livestock. Yofu clarified that the tribe's cattle and horses were used for labor, and they grew grain for food, seeds from grasses that could be cooked and eaten. The tribe also raised other animals, so there was no shortage of meat. The tribe's leader was wise, teaching everyone how to make tools, grow crops, and raise livestock. Lin didn't quite understand, especially the concept of growing grain. The idea of humans eating grass seeds seemed unbelievable to him. Knowing Lin was puzzled, Yofu, whose caravan happened to have grain, had someone bring half a sack of rice. He handed Lin a handful of unhulled rice, explaining that once the husk was removed, it became rice, which was delicious when cooked. He promised to let Lin try it the next day. Lin took the rice, examining it closely by the fire, thinking it was fodder for cattle and horses and finding it hard to believe that humans could eat it. Lin mentioned having seen such grass in the grasslands, growing in dry areas, waist-high with spiky ears that cattle and sheep loved to eat. Yofu was astonished, realizing that Lin might be referring to a grain similar to rice. If it could be grown in arid land, it would be of great significance to the Han tribe. Excitedly, he grabbed Lin's arm and asked if he could take him to find this grass, promising generous rewards in white salt and pottery. Tempted, Lin agreed readily, as this grass was common in the grasslands and easy to find. The next morning, Yofu had someone cook white rice porridge and specially prepared dry rice for Lin's family. Lin woke early and was sharpening arrowheads and crafting arrow shafts. Yofu saw this and took out a bronze arrowhead used by the Han tribe, handing it to Lin. Lin was immediately captivated, marveling at the material. His own arrowheads were made from shrub branches with bone tips, far inferior in quality. Admiring the Han tribe's superior arrows, he asked what they were made of. Yofu explained that they were invented by the tribe's leader with bronze tips, and that the entire tribe used such weapons. He then poured all the arrows from his quiver for Lin to see and had Lin test the longbow. After shooting, Lin was deeply impressed. He discovered that the longbow had a much greater range than his own bow. Taking the opportunity, Yofu mentioned that the chieftain was crafting shorter, more powerful bows and arrows. If Lin joined the tribe, he would receive one. Hearing this, Lin immediately perked up and asked excitedly if it was true. Yofu assured him it was, adding that the Han tribe did not discriminate against outsiders. He himself had been the leader of a small tribe and had only joined a few months ago with his people. The two had breakfast together. Lin and his woman ate white rice and duck meat, while the rest of the Han tribe had plain congee. Ming tasted the rice and praised it highly, unable to believe it was grown from grass seeds. Yofu explained that food was easy to obtain. A single grass seed could provide a full meal, and the leaves and stalks could be used for sanitation, leaving nothing to waste. Lin thought this was indeed an excellent method of acquiring food. After the meal, the group set off to find the next nomadic tribe for trade while also searching for the plant Lin had mentioned. Lin's woman and child rode in the ox cart, while he himself mounted a zebra equipped with a saddle and stirrups. Lin was a skilled rider, and with the aid of the stirrups, the zebra ran even faster. On horseback, he felt the advantages of the stirrups. Not only did they save effort, but they also allowed for many tactical maneuvers, making them highly useful in battle. Lin thought that if the Han tribe had good short bows and these horse tack, they could surely build a powerful cavalry. The more he pondered, the more he felt that joining the Han tribe was a wise choice. After discussing it with his woman, he decided to bring his entire family into the tribe. Lin informed Yofu of his decision, and Yofu was delighted. He said the chieftain was excellent and skilled at utilizing talent. Someone like Lin, with his abilities, would surely be entrusted with important roles, possibly even as a team leader. Lin was deeply moved by this. Led by Lin, the group traveled dozens of kilometers by noon, where they discovered wheat in the grasslands. Yofu confirmed it was a grain seed. Though they couldn't distinguish whether it was barley or wheat, it didn't matter. They could grind it into flour and test it. They stayed for 2 hours, collecting 2 large sacks of wheat ears and digging up several whole plants to plant in clay pots, intending to bring them back for research. The group continued their journey and by evening encountered the cattle bones of the Linshu tribe. Chief Altai of the Bru tribe met with Lin, and through Lin's introduction, Yofu and Altai began trading. Meanwhile, the Azuka giant eagle flew back to the Han tribe after 2 days. Inrue spotted it and called it down, noticing the animal hide tied to its leg. He hurriedly brought it to you. You nervously took the hide, recognizing it as sheepskin, and guessed that Yofu and the others might have found sheep and conducted a trade. Unfolding the hide, though the letter contained many misspellings, you understood its contents. The letter stated that they had traveled south for over a month, reaching a vast plain with freshwater lakes and grasslands. They encountered nomadic tribes and traded pottery and white salt for a large number of livestock, with half of their goods still remaining. They planned to return after trading with more tribes and requested that you prepare more winter fodder. Your hands trembled with excitement. You hadn't expected Yofu and the team to achieve such great success. The high-ranking members of the tribe who had stayed behind gathered around upon hearing the news. Seeing you staring blankly at the letter with trembling hands, they initially feared it was bad news from Yofu. But you joyfully announced that Yofu and the others had found a grassland and traded for nearly 1,000 head of livestock. From then on, the tribe would lack neither cattle for labor nor sheep for meat. Everyone was overjoyed. You ordered the animal hide letter to be hung under the flagpole so all tribespeople could hear the good news and decided to prepare an extra feast that evening. You assigned the next tasks. The construction team was to first fence off the breeding area with barriers before continuing to build houses. More people were assigned to the gathering team to collect horse chestnuts, short acorns, and other resources. You also decided to purchase straw from other tribes as fodder, exchanging it for pottery or white salt. Though the price was low, the Han tribe would need to transport it back themselves. If there weren't enough carts, they would make more quickly, even using branches to construct temporary ones. Though the tribespeople worked hard, they were happy knowing it was for the livestock. The trade on Yofu's end was also proceeding smoothly. With Zero's assistance, he once again traded with the Altai tribe for 1,000 head of livestock. This time, Yofu requested fewer sheep, primarily exchanging for 200 cattle and 400 horses, while also purchasing 400 sheep. Considering that the herds would be difficult to manage, he also bought 10 skilled horse-riding herding girls at a high price. By this time, the caravan's goods were almost entirely sold, leaving only a barrel of white salt and some trinkets obtained for free, which they planned to trade with smaller tribes in the mountains on their way back. With the grassland trade concluded, the group set off on their return journey. 2 days later, as the caravan reached the mountain pass at the border between the grasslands and the mountains, they received your reply via Eagle Messenger. The message was simple, reminding them to stay safe and return quickly after selling their goods. Yofu was delighted. He was fascinated by the method of using Chinese characters and Eagle messengers and planned to learn more about Chinese writing from you upon his return. In a stroke of inspiration, he sent you another Eagle message, this time without any written words. Instead, he wrapped a bundle of whole wheat stalks in animal hide, tied it to the eagle's leg, and released the bird. The caravan continued its journey. Originally consisting of 40 people, the group had now grown to 56, accompanied by 2,000 cattle, horses, and sheep. The herds moved along the mountain paths with great commotion, devouring all the vegetation along the way and leaving behind a trail of dung. 2 more days passed, and you received another Eagle message. Thinking Yofu might be in trouble and seeking help, you were pleasantly surprised to find a bundle of wheat stalks inside. The tribal elders gathered around you. Shuda asked what kind of plant it was. You explained that it was wheat. Not only could it be used to make porridge, but when processed into flour, it could be used in a variety of dishes such as noodles, dumpling fillings, pancakes, steamed buns, and stuffed buns. Moreover, wheat didn't need to be grown in paddy fields. It only required a few irrigation channels. The only drawback was that its yield was lower than that of rice. You suggested planting a small amount the following year. As everyone listened to your explanation, they regarded you as if you were a monster. How could you know so many ways to use wheat upon seeing it for the first time? The elders felt you had changed too much and suspected you were either a deity or guided by divine wisdom. However, everyone regarded you as a supernatural being and followed your arrangements. You stored the wheat, planning to plant it the following year, and sent a reply to Yofu, instructing him to gather more wheat seeds and return to the tribe before winter. After receiving your message, Yofu quickened his pace. A few days later, they arrived near the Lu tribe to collect the 60 spotted pigs they had previously ordered. Having been away from the Lu tribe for nearly a month, Chief Lu had begun to worry that they had encountered danger and would not return. When tribesmen reported that Yofu had returned with thousands of livestock, Lu was both shocked and anxious, fearing that the Han tribe might stop trading spotted pigs with them or lower the prices. Yofu gave the Lu tribe no time to ponder. As the massive herd passed by, he simply unloaded half a barrel of white salt and some trinkets from the ox cart, collected the 60 pigs, and departed. The return journey was faster than the outbound one. Although small tribes along the way wanted to trade for livestock or animal hides, Yofu did not sell any of the livestock. He only traded a small amount of animal hides. Time passed quickly, and before long it was late autumn bordering on early winter. Yofu and his group were nearing the Han tribe. The entire round trip had taken 3 months. In the meantime, the Han tribe had developed rapidly. 2 breeding farms were completed, and a second warehouse was built to store fodder and dried salted fish. A cellar was also dug to store clear feed for the pigs. Fences were erected in the breeding area, and simple sheds were constructed. In the smelting zone, new types of blast furnaces were completed, one for copper and one for iron. Heavy lifting equipment like cranes was also prepared. You and the carpentry team developed new mold casting equipment to mass-produce iron pots. As the harsh winter approached, the Han tribe was fully prepared. The city walls continued to be built, and the fields east of the river were being converted into paddy fields. Then, just 1 week before winter officially began, the busy tribespeople suddenly noticed a deafening sound in the distance, like a mountain collapsing and the earth splitting open. The ground seemed to tremble, terrifying everyone. One by one, they retreated into their shelters. Yet a thrilled smile spread across your face. The great benefactor of the tribe had returned. At that moment, Yufu led the merchant caravan, laden with goods, back to Han Bui. Upon seeing them, the tribespeople erupted in cheers, rushing forward to welcome them. The scene was indescribably lively, as if they were greeting triumphant heroes. Yufu and the others, spotting the welcoming party from the tribe, were equally exhilarated and quickened their pace. As they drew near, Yufu dismounted and embraced you tightly. The other team members also hugged their fellow tribespeople, sharing in the joy. "Chieftain, we're back. This trip has been incredibly fruitful. Look at these livestock and all the valuable goods we traded for." Yufu excitedly pointed out the animals he had brought back. "Haha, excellent. You've all worked hard and accomplished a great deed. Quickly settle the livestock and let's celebrate properly," you replied, beaming as you patted Yufu's shoulder. Soon, the entire Han Bui tribe was immersed in a festive atmosphere. They slaughtered many animals and held a grand celebration feast. During the feast, Yufu introduced Lin and his family, along with 10 young women from the Altai tribe, to you. He particularly emphasized Lin's skills. Upon hearing that Lin was skilled in horseback riding and archery, you immediately felt a desire to nurture his talent. You decided on the spot to keep him in the tribe and bestowed upon him a new name, Lin Feng. From then on, he would be responsible for teaching his skills to the other tribespeople. After a brief translation by Yufu, Lin Feng understood your intentions. Overwhelmed with emotion, he immediately knelt on one knee before you, pledging with a smile and vowing not to disappoint your expectations, promising to work hard for the Han tribe. The 10 young women from the grasslands were also assigned a house and tasked with tending to the livestock at the breeding farm. Deshu was assigned to show them their new home, distribute daily necessities, and teach them how to use the house, as well as how to grill and cook. Lin Feng and his family walked along the brick-paved paths of the settlement, gazing at the tall warehouses and rows of neat houses. It felt as if they had stepped into a bustling town. This was what a renowned tribe should look like. After hearing Deshu explain that everything there had been taught by the chieftain, Lin Feng couldn't help but develop a fervent admiration for you. Though you were younger than him, you managed thousands of people so effectively and ensured their prosperous lives, something he knew he could never achieve himself. Lin Feng's family was quickly led to an empty house. Enthusiastic tribespeople came and went, offering help. Some brought water jars and buckets, pottery, and animal hides. Women from neighboring households helped lay out the hides for drying. while men used small carts to fetch 2 bags of rice from the warehouse. Others arrived with carts of firewood, and essential tools were also delivered. After returning, you instructed Xiao Dai to bring some cloth and wool to their home, intended for the children. With new life came both benefits and challenges. For instance, Lin Feng's flock of sheep, horses, and sheepdogs were all claimed as communal property, which posed a problem. The sheep being communal was understandable, but the horses had grown very attached to Lin Feng. Not being able to see him regularly now made them restless, as if their hearts were being clawed at. You considered this issue but knew that keeping horses in residential areas was impractical. For the time being, you couldn't assign the horses to individuals, so you allowed Lin Feng to visit them in the stables during his free time. The sheepdogs presented another challenge. These dogs were loyal to their master and kept running excitedly to Lin Feng's home. There was little you could do but instruct him to keep them under control to prevent any incidents. Ideally, the dogs should be moved to the breeding farm, but adapting to a new environment would take time. Fortunately, the long winter days provided ample opportunity for adjustment. You don't have time either to keep staring at these trivial, annoying matters every day. There are more important things to do. The casting mold for the iron pot developed by the carpentry team has been completed. The first day of winter has arrived. Even though no one has come for a long time, you begin leading the tribe in iron smelting on this day. Big Mouth stands beside you. You intend to teach him the entire process, demonstrating it step by step, and then entrusting the work entirely to the tribe. Dozens of people are directly involved in the smelting, with over 100 assisting in supporting tasks. A single furnace yields roughly 2 tons of output. Apart from casting 2 heavy iron ingots, each weighing over 100 pounds, the rest is used to make iron pots. In the end, after counting, there are fewer than 200 pots in total, large and small combined, not even enough for the Han tribe's own use. But after a full day of work, everyone is already exhausted, so they have no choice but to stop for now. You instruct the tribe to continue polishing the iron pots and then turn to Big Mouth, telling him to inspect every part of the furnace for damage once it has completely cooled down. Any damaged areas must be repaired promptly to prevent accidents in the future. Big Mouth readily agrees. After a day of smelting iron, you feel tired too and decide to take a walk alone. You slowly stroll to the bank of the Xianxia River. In early winter, the water level has dropped significantly, but the water wheel and mill by the riverbank are still turning. However, due to the reduced water flow, they don't spin as fast as before. In at most another month, the river will begin to freeze. By then, using the mill will no longer be possible. A cold north wind blows, making you shiver involuntarily. You quickly tighten the animal hide clothing around you. Suddenly, inspiration strikes you again. Water may freeze in winter, but the wind is strong. If a windmill were built, wouldn't it still work in winter? Moreover, wind is a natural force available all year round, making it even more convenient than a water wheel. At the very least, there's no need to worry about location. Having come up with a solution, you immediately rush back to the carpentry team. You find 2 long wooden sticks, cross them, and tie them firmly together with rope. Then, you weave vines into 4 square frames and send someone to the warehouse to fetch 4 hemp sacks, which you attach to the vine frames, creating 4 blades. The carpenter's wooden barrel and wooden stake watch your strange actions, knowing that the chief must be creating something new again. But they still can't figure out the purpose of this odd contraption. It isn't until you mount the cross-shaped blades on a wooden frame resembling a water wheel that the blades, facing north, catch the wind and quickly start spinning. This leaves everyone in the carpentry team wide-eyed. The chief wants to install this on machinery to create something like the water wheel mill. Wooden barrel is the first to grasp your intention. You smile and nod. I'll soon figure out the detailed construction method. When the time comes, you'll be the ones to build this windmill. Once it's done, it will surely be more useful than the water wheel. That's true. Without considering weather constraints, the windmill has advantages over the water wheel. And there's no need to worry about location. Wooden stake analyzes from the side. All right, everyone, get back to your tasks. I'll go back and think about how to make this thing. I'll let you know once I've figured it out. With that, you head home alone. Lying on the warm heated Kong, the room is extremely dim. The windows and doors were temporarily added. The door made of wooden planks, the windows covered with animal hide wrapped around iron, blocking out all outside light. Right now, the Han tribe doesn't even have paper, making it difficult to create a translucent window. Thinking of this, you can't help but sigh deeply. There's still a long road ahead, with countless things waiting for you to accomplish. In the following days, Neo leads the tribe in smelting iron for 2 more rounds. The materials stockpiled over the previous months were completely exhausted. However, a substantial amount of iron ingots was obtained, along with a small quantity of steel nails produced using the co-fusion steelmaking method. The number of iron pots had also become plentiful. After meeting the needs of the Han tribe's own market, dozens of iron pots remained in reserve, which could also be used for trade. Most of the remaining iron was stored as ingots. For the time being, no further research was conducted on iron. You quickly immersed yourself in the carpentry group and, over a few days, led a team of carpenters to create a windmill model as tall as a person. Next, all that was needed was for the tribesmen to scale up the model and begin production. A new project was launched, but the Han tribe's carpentry group was short on manpower. As a result, you began recruiting a second batch of carpenters within the tribe to produce more wooden products. Additionally, with the availability of iron, professional blacksmiths were also selected. The training of skilled technical personnel in the Han tribe gradually began in earnest. At that time, the Han tribe did not have a single blacksmith, so the first batch had to be trained by you personally. A blacksmith workshop was quickly constructed next to the tall building, a shed built with bricks and logs. Apprentices for forging were already in place, consisting of several former outsiders who had joined the Han tribe. Among them was a fellow named E, whose arm you had once treated. This guy had previously followed Big Mouth to learn archery and was now starting to learn blacksmithing from you. Since wrought iron and steel were now available, you decided to first forge a personal weapon, a longsword, while allowing the apprentices to observe and learn. The sword you intended to make was the most typical Han Dynasty-style 8-sided sword, with the entire blade divided into 8 facets. The most notable feature of this sword was its thickness, making it suitable for both thrusting and slashing, while also being highly resilient and difficult to break. Luo Chong personally selected a piece of wrought iron and heated it in the furnace. The apprentices nearby immediately operated the bellows to soften the iron. After heating for a while, the iron was gripped with tongs, placed on the anvil and hammered. As you hammered, you explained the process to the apprentices, then proceeded with folding, forging, shaping, tempering, and quenching. Finally, the hilt was assembled using the only piece of ivory the Han tribe possessed, which had been taken from the mouth of a mammoth by the hunting team. The hilt was shaped like an oval cylinder, hollow inside and carved with patterns on the outside. As a sword symbolizing the leader's status, it was given a resounding name, Heaven's Wrath. The name signified that when the ruler is angered, millions may perish, representing absolute sovereignty and the power to dictate life and death. The tribesmen had only heard that iron weapons were superior to bronze, but they had never witnessed how. To demonstrate, you took out Heaven's Wrath and performed a test. 2 bricks were deliberately brought over, and the sword was placed across them. Then you stood entirely on the suspended blade. The sword bent into a significant arc under the weight, but as soon as you stepped off, it instantly sprang back to its original shape, astonishing all the onlookers. Next came the sharpness test. A sheep was brought over, and with a flash of the sword, its head was severed. Blood splattered everywhere, and the onlookers were once again stunned from 5 paces away. The sheep's thick fur had been cleanly sliced through. If it had been a bare human neck, the result would have been even more gruesome. How can an iron sword be so powerful? Shu De exclaimed in amazement. If every one of our warriors had one person could probably take on 10 enemies. Yes, Chief. Can we also have such a sword? De Shu asked eagerly, his eyes filled with longing. This was, in fact, the question on everyone's mind. Such an exceptional weapon could be considered a legendary treasure. Who wouldn't want to possess one? Probably not feasible. I saw the chief and a few others working on this sword for a full month. If our entire tribe were to use such swords, when would we ever finish making them? The elder, having observed your sword-making process, understood the situation well and directly poured cold water on the idea. Indeed, the swords were difficult to produce, but while former chiefs might have known how to make them, the ordinary warriors would have to be equipped with simpler, single-edged blades, weapons with only one cutting edge. As for the rest of the tribe, only those who had rendered great service to the tribe would be rewarded with a fine sword. However, there was no need to look down on the single-edged blades. A sample had already been made and everyone could examine it. Its overall performance was no worse than that of a common sword, merely lacking a second edge. For those unskilled with blades, this actually made it safer, as mishandling a double-edged sword could easily lead to self-injury. The sample single-edged blade was brought out for everyone to see. The tribespeople took turns testing it according to your method and found that, Just as the chief had said, it was in no way inferior to the Han sword. In fact, it excelled in chopping power, and some even preferred this sturdier single-edged blade. By the end of the first month of winter, the Han tribe had produced only one sword and one blade. Other construction projects, however, had not been neglected. For instance, after months of effort, the earthen wall had finally reached its final stage. The wall stood 7.5 meters high, with a 1.3 meter wide structure on top to protect the warriors stationed there. Above the gate was a watchtower housing 2 winches for raising and lowering the drawbridge. The entire watchtower reached a height of 10 meters. Inside the gate, on either side, were staircases hugging the wall, each 1.2 meters wide, allowing 2 people to ascend or descend side by side for quick access to the battlements. The completion of the wall brought you great joy. The towering structure provided a sense of security for the tribe, and the people cheered with excitement. Living in such an impregnable city filled them with immense pride and happiness. With no worries about food or clothing and no fear of external threats, life in this era felt almost divine. Finally, you summoned the lame craftsman and together designed 8 oversized blue bricks inscribed with the relief characters Han Yang in clerical script. These were placed above the 4 city gates, naming the Han tribe's first city, Han Yang City. This symbolized the tribe as a rising sun, destined to climb higher and grow stronger. A dozen or so days later, in midwinter's second month, you assigned new tasks to the 200 or so slaves, continuing to build warehouses and livestock pens. Though the weather was cold, you showed no mercy to these former enemies. Keeping slaves idle was a waste, and while you forced them into hard labor, you did not withhold necessary benefits. Each slave had sufficient clothing to cover their bodies and was fed 3 meals a day. Salt was plentiful, and though meat was scarce, meat broth was provided in abundance. In the harsh winter, a bowl of hot broth was a rare comfort, something they had never experienced in their former cannibal tribe. Thus, the slaves remained obedient and docile. Work meant food, idleness meant punishment, and escape was impossible, especially after they had built the walls themselves. With guards at every gate, even if they had the means, breaking out was unthinkable. For the Han tribe, this towering wall was more than just a structure. It was a symbol of safety and prosperity. It is a harbor of refuge, but for these slaves, that was an insurmountable cage. In a month and a half, the carpentry team had nearly completed their preparations for the windmills. 2 sets had been constructed in total. The first windmill house was built right next to the tall building, equipped with 2 windmills. One was used to provide power for the animal-driven vertical shaft, while the other supplied energy to the millstone, allowing the Han tribe to continue grinding during the winter. The ore powder windmill operated smoothly for 2 days without any malfunctions. With the trial run concluded, you immediately issued the order to continue building windmills. This time, it was again 2 sets of windmills, but they were intended for the carpentry team, the Han tribe's wood processing workshop. Powered by the windmills, several wind-powered sawing machines were to be made. This way, the production speed of wooden goods could be greatly accelerated. Up to now, the residential houses of the Han tribe still lacked doors and windows, simply because no one had the time to assemble so many wooden strips and planks. Once this processing workshop was completed with the rapid output of basic lumber, whether it was for making furniture and housing fixtures, boats and vehicles, or even wooden machinery, the Han tribe would be able to process them quickly. After instructing a group of blacksmiths to forge saw blades and guiding the carpenters on how to build the sawing machines, you soon became busy with other matters, namely, constructing oil pressing equipment. The Han tribe had stored a large quantity of oil-bearing fruits, but so far, there was no pressing equipment to process them. As wooden products continued to accumulate, the tung oil needed for paint was still unavailable. Thus, the development of pressing equipment became a daily priority. The process for extracting vegetable oil was essentially the same. First, grind the oil-rich fruits into powder, then stir-fry them in a pan, wrap the cooked powder in cloth or straw bundles, and finally, apply physical pressure to squeeze out the oil contained within. The pressing equipment was set up in a newly built warehouse by the slaves, which you named the oil house. The oil house was divided into 3 sections, each dedicated to processing a different type of vegetable oil. One for peanut oil, another for tung oil, and the third for chigua oil. The structure of the pressing equipment was quite simple. First, a bronze bucket with a bottom oil hole, 40 centimeters in diameter, was cast. Then, a lever-style pressing hammer made of wood was installed above it, which could be raised and lowered using ropes and pulleys. Bricks could also be hung from the wooden lever to increase the weight of the pressure arm, allowing the oil pressing workers to adjust the pressure flexibly. In the latter half of the second month of winter, Just as you were guiding your clansmen in building the oil-pressing equipment, the overcast sky once again let loose a heavy snowfall. This snow continued for a full day, and the accumulated snow in the town square reached a foot in depth. Such heavy snow was nothing to the well-prepared Han tribe, but for the smaller tribes it was exceptionally harsh. The lack of food and shortage of fuel forced them to venture outside. In previous years, under such circumstances, they would typically go out hunting to survive. But this winter they had a new option, the Han tribe's market. Although it was uncertain whether the market would remain open in winter, only by going to see for themselves would they know for sure. Perhaps it held the hope for survival. Speaking of the Han tribe's market, since you had decided to use animal hides as the universal medium of exchange, the Han tribe now had a very abundant reserve of hides. While ensuring that all clansmen were adequately clothed, the Han tribe could also use the surplus hides to produce some luxury items, namely, large oxhide drums. During the spring sacrifice last year, there was only one large oxhide drum. Now, 8 drums of the same size were available, placed on both sides of the 4 gate towers, serving as warning instruments for the town's defense. Over a dozen warriors were assigned to guard the 4 town gates. 4 guards were stationed at each city gate. 2 of them warmed themselves by a fire in the gatehouse, while the other 2 patrolled the walls. They rotated shifts periodically. On the 7th day after the second heavy snowfall of winter, you were supervising Big Mouth as he cast a specialized large iron cauldron for the oil workshop. Suddenly, the great drum at the southern gate of the Han tribe sounded. The rhythmic dong, dong, dong echoed throughout Hanyang City, startling you. As you wondered what was happening, you listened carefully and realized only one drum was being struck. Instantly, you felt relieved. Hanyang City had 2 drums at each gate. If enemies were approaching, both drums would be beaten together. But if only a small number of people arrived below the walls and were judged not to be hostile, only one drum would be struck, a rule you had established earlier. Thus, the drumbeats alone could convey the situation outside the city. After giving Big Mouth a few instructions, you grabbed your sword and hurried straight to the southern gate. The guards on duty, seeing their chieftain arrive, quickly reported what they had observed. Peering over the battlements, you saw a few individuals below the gate tower, empty-handed. Though puzzled, you ordered the soldiers to open the gate. Upon hearing the command, several guards hurriedly turned the winch to lower the drawbridge, then followed you down the wall. The 8 people outside were warriors sent by a small tribe of fewer than 100 members. They had visited the Han tribe's market before, but the prices were too high for them. With little to trade and no local products that caught your interest, no transactions had taken place. Now, their tribe's food reserves were critically low, lasting at most another half-month. They had initially planned to hunt hibernating small animals to stave off hunger, but a sudden heavy snow had blanketed the entire land, leaving them with no choice but to seek their luck at the Han tribe. You, accompanied by 4 spear-wielding warriors, opened the city gate and finally got a clear look at the 8 outsiders. They wore drafty animal hide clothing, their noses and ears red from the cold, hands and feet covered in frostbite. Shivering, they clutched crude spears, standing at the far end of the drawbridge. You waved, signaling them to approach. Hesitantly, they stepped onto the drawbridge and, at your request, surrendered their weapons. Only then were they led into an empty, uninhabited house. Each was given a bowl of meat broth, the same ration prepared for slaves, before you began questioning them. They claimed to have come for trade. Trade what? You haven't brought anything worth exchanging, you remarked, citing the Han tribe's principles. Our tribe is running out of food. We hope to borrow some from the Han tribe and repay you next year once we have game. One of them explained. You laughed outright. Once lent, would such things ever be returned? Don't joke, lending is out of the question. But I'm not without compassion. Since your tribe can't sustain itself, why not hand over your people to the Han tribe? In return, we'll give you some food. This would ease your burden and boost your reserves. The leader of the group hesitated, taken aback. He had never considered such a solution, and his tribe hadn't discussed this scenario beforehand. He was at a loss for words. Of course, if your tribe is unwilling to separate, I have another, better proposal, you continued. Your entire tribe could join the Han tribe. Once you become our clansmen, you'll enjoy the same treatment as everyone else. Go back and discuss it with your people. If they agree, you can relocate here immediately. We can't decide this ourselves, but we'll inform our chieftain. Whether they agree or not, we cannot say. Although I personally would very much like to stay in the Han tribe, your place here is truly wonderful. I will definitely describe the Han tribe to my clansmen. I believe they will surely like it too. Very well, then I won't keep you. I hope you can make the right choice. If you are willing to come, the Han tribe will always welcome you. The conversation concluded. You stood up to see your guests out. The guards at the city gate quickly let the group pass through. You turned back and returned to Big Mouth's side to watch them casting iron pots. As for those people from earlier, you didn't give them a second thought. Such a small number of individuals didn't even catch your attention at this point. In the days that followed, the Han tribe continued its rapid development. The equipment for the oil press was soon completed, and you began leading your clansmen in pressing tung oil. Freshly pressed tung oil, in fact, looked no different in color from soybean oil. This type of tung oil was called raw tung oil and could be used as lamp oil. However, for use in varnishing, the best option was boiled tung oil, made by simmering raw tung oil with pine branches. The finished product was thicker and had turned a deeper amber color, making it the ideal natural material for crafting furniture. The emergence of tung oil immediately solved the Han tribe's lighting issues. Although the oil lamps weren't very bright, the fact that they now had light starting from nothing was a good beginning. Before, the Han tribe had doors or windows that let in light. Placing an oil lamp inside a room brought immense convenience to daily life. Now, when night fell, the Han tribe was no longer shrouded in complete darkness. Just as you were boosting your reputation in the tribe by distributing oil lamps, the few individuals who had earlier come to borrow food returned to their own tribe. Their eagerly awaiting clansmen, seeing them return empty-handed, couldn't help but show disappointment. They had already been rationing food, eating only one meal a day, and such days were incredibly difficult to endure. Many people, to reduce their energy expenditure, stayed curled up in their earthen huts without moving, much like animals hibernating, hoping for the harsh winter to end sooner. Did you not manage to borrow any food? The tribal leader asked the returning group. Was the Han tribe unwilling to give? Or did you not find the Han tribe? We found the Han tribe, but they refused to lend us food. However, they said we could all join the Han tribe, and then we'd have endless food. The leader of the group then recounted everything they had seen and heard at the Han tribe, but deliberately omitted the other option you had mentioned, trading people for supplies. This was something the 8 of them had agreed upon on their way back. As adult males, they were indispensable pillars of their tribe. So, if they were to trade people with the Han tribe, the most likely candidates to be exchanged would be their women and children, a prospect none of them wished to see. Rather than trading their own family members for food, it would be better for everyone to join the Han tribe outright. To prevent the tragedy of families being torn apart, they chose to keep this matter hidden. Upon hearing the news, the tribal leader was first astonished, then concluded that the Han tribe was not a benevolent one. Despite having endless food, they used it to coerce them into joining. The outcome, naturally, was predictable. The leader refused the Han tribe's unreasonable conditions, believing that his tribe could endure a bit more hardship and surely survive the winter, firmly resisting the Han tribe's threats. The leader's decision quickly spread throughout the tribe. Moreover, the already reduced ration of 1 meal a day was suddenly cut to 1 meal every 2 days, and they still had to venture out daily into the cold weather to search for food. This time, the clansmen would not stand for it. Life was already hard enough, but now it had become even more impoverished. Though the tribespeople dared not voice their opposition to the chieftain's views, their hearts were filled with bitterness. The chieftain had assumed the matter was over, but to his surprise, a mass desertion suddenly occurred within the tribe. It turned out that the 8 men who had gone to the Han tribe had spread word among their people about what they had seen there and the many benefits of joining the Han tribe. This ignited a longing in many of the tribe's people. Under the planning of these few, they quickly rallied a group willing to follow them and defect to the Han tribe. One night, after everyone had fallen asleep, nearly half the tribe quietly rose and fled with the 8 men under the cover of darkness toward the Han tribe. A group of 42 men and women trudged wearily through the snow. Among them were several innocent, unknowing children who had originally been on the verge of being abandoned by the tribe but now held a renewed hope for survival. They dared not light torches, fearing discovery by their tribe. They carried little food, and the scant provisions they had were prioritized for the children. They were a group unwilling to give up on their young. In the tribe, food was controlled by the chieftain and his close associates. Unable to steal any, they had to forage daily, hiding whatever they found outside the tribe instead of bringing it back. After several days of stockpiling this way, they had gathered just enough supplies to attempt their escape. The group braved the wind and snow, walking through half the night until the following morning. Already undernourished, their strength began to wane. They rationed their food, giving a little to the children, and continued their flight. Having taken half the tribe with them, they were certain the chieftain would be furious. They didn't know if he would send pursuers after them, but fortunately, the snow had covered their tracks, easing their fears slightly. After another day of travel, the escapees were on the verge of collapse. With no campfire for warmth and no hot food to eat, they finally decided to send 2 men to the Han tribe to seek help. The rest would stay put, gathering firewood to build a fire for warmth and scavenging for whatever food they could find nearby. They were determined to survive no matter what. A week passed before the 2 men seeking help finally reached the gates of the Han tribe. They spent a freezing night outside the city walls and were only discovered by the guards the next morning. By the time you received the news and ordered the gates open to bring them in, one of the men was already frozen and unconscious. The other, with great effort, managed to explain the situation. Upon learning that 40 others willing to join the Han tribe were still outside, starving and suffering, you immediately issued a rescue order. 5 hastily made simple sleds, manned by 20 cavalry members, carried animal hides, food, iron pots, and firewood. They took the conscious man as a guide, and under Yu Fu's leadership, the group swiftly turned back. It took the rescue team 2 days to reach the place where the others were holding on, awaiting help. But they were too late. 5 of the 40 left behind had frozen to death, and the rest were hovering between life and death. The survivors were listless and dazed, so desperate that they had even resorted to eating the animal hides meant to keep them warm. As for the nursing infants, they had survived by drinking their mother's blood. Chronic malnutrition had long robbed the mothers of the ability to breastfeed. The harrowing scene drew sighs of sorrow from the Han tribespeople who had come to rescue them. Yu Fu immediately ordered iron pots set up to cook salted meat porridge with preserved meat and rice for the survivors. The large quantity of animal hides brought on the sleds was also distributed among them. After a day of rescue efforts, these individuals gradually recovered. Then, with the help of the rescue team, they buried the bodies of the deceased on the spot and were all towed back on sleds by the rescue team. These several dozen people arrived at the Han tribe, and their ordeal quickly spread through the accounts of the rescue team. The members of the Han tribe expressed their sympathy for them. At the same time, they felt deeply grateful to be part of the Han tribe, fortunate to live the good life brought by their leader. Over the next few days, many tribe members took time off from work to visit and comfort these newly joined members, teaching them how to use various tools and items in the Han tribe, teaching them to speak the Han language, so they could quickly adapt to life in the Han tribe. The newcomers, touched by the warmth of the elders, felt deeply moved. After experiencing life in the Han tribe, they also realized how wise their decision had been. A few more days passed, and time swiftly moved to the end of the 2nd month of winter. The Han tribe's windmills and the timber processing factory were completed, freeing up many tribe members once again. You assigned them new tasks. The 4-month winter was only halfway through, and the food reserves of various tribes were nearly depleted. Some tribes with limited food stores had reached their most difficult moments. There were likely many others like those who sought to join the Han tribe. For other small tribes, this was undoubtedly a disaster, but in your eyes, it was a perfect opportunity to absorb more people. The current population of the Han tribe, including slaves, could roughly amount to 3,000, but the population capacity of Hanyang City could still accommodate at least 2,000 more. So, you immediately dispatched a cavalry unit of 100 people, divided into 10 teams, spreading out in all directions from the Han tribe. Each team had 10 members, each with 2 horses. Additionally, each team was equipped with an Azuka giant eagle for reconnaissance and message delivery. Their mission was specifically to contact small tribes with fewer than 100 members. These tribes, with their small populations, were most likely to face food shortages. It might be possible to persuade some to join or trade for people using food and animal pelts, which shouldn't be too difficult. After deploying these teams, you remained in Hanyang City, awaiting their results. Meanwhile, the development of the Han tribe continued steadily. The completion of the wind-powered hammer and the wind-powered automatic sawmill greatly enhanced the Han tribe's manufacturing capabilities, especially the timber processing factory, which could now produce and allocate hundreds of items daily. As a result, these most basic pieces of furniture quickly reached every household in the Han tribe. As for applying tung oil, it was left to each family to complete on their own, thereby shortening processing time. Benches, square tables, lattice windows, and wooden plank doors, these urgently needed furnishings and decorations, were successively produced in the timber processing factory and distributed to each household, improving the living standards and habits of the tribe. At the blacksmith shop, more tools were continuously being forged: iron spoons, kitchen knives, scissors, and steel needles. With the technology to produce steel needles, you made further simple improvements and even created springs. Just then, the cavalry teams sent out to recruit small tribes finally brought back results. The 10 teams, one after another, either brought back people acquired through trade or directly persuaded entire small tribes with few members to return with them. As a result, the Han tribe's population grew rapidly. In less than half a month, the tribe's population increased by 200 to 300 people. But that wasn't the most significant outcome. These teams, originally sent to find people, made an unexpected discovery along the way. East of the river, starting from the territory of the Black Rat tribe and continuing eastward, a 5-day journey away, you discovered a great river there, as wide as 7 or 8 houses side by side. Moreover, on the western bank of the river, there was a large expanse of flat land, even bigger than the current Hanyang city. No tribe inhabited that flat land, but within a 2-day journey around it, several tribes were settled in the mountains and forests. Feather held a roughly sketched terrain map and explained it to you. You took the map and studied it with interest. Regarding the river Feather mentioned, which was as wide as 7 or 8 houses, with each Han tribe household measuring about 10 meters in length, a width of 7 or 8 households would mean 70 to 80 meters. A river that wide could indeed be considered a great river. Based on the geographical information you possessed, the upstream of this river likely originated from the marshland water system east of Mount Babeo. After all, that location was quite close, and where there is water, people can survive. Moreover, that area was near Mount Babeo. If it could be occupied and fortified, whether for nearby copper smelting, developing shipping, or accessing the abundant freshwater resources in the river, it was all highly appealing. The Han tribe's first city would soon reach its population limit. Thus, planning the location for the next city had to begin early. That area had vast stretches of flat land and abundant water resources, which would also be highly beneficial for the Han tribe's agricultural development. From Hanyang City to the former territory of the Black Shu tribe, it was a day's journey on foot. But to reach the great river Feather mentioned, it would take another 5 days' journey. However, due to the snow covering the ground and the need to search along the way, even traveling on horseback wasn't very fast. Converting this distance to walking, it would likely take about 7 or 8 days. Assuming a walking speed of 20 kilometers per day, the distance should be around 150 kilometers. If a direct road could be built along this route, with a relay station in between for changing horses, traveling at full speed would take only 5 or 6 hours. Given the Han tribe's current capabilities, they could certainly take control of that area and establish it as the tribe's next city. The relay station along the way could also be developed into a small village. As for why no tribe lived there, it was quite understandable. After all, being close to a water source inevitably meant many wild beasts, and with vast stretches of flat land all around, there were no natural defenses. Tribes that couldn't build walls wouldn't dare settle there, which made perfect sense. Since it was unclaimed territory and met the Han tribe's needs perfectly, of course the Han tribe should seize it first. But there was no rush. This wasn't something that could be accomplished immediately. The biggest challenge in building a new city was the Han tribe's current lack of sufficient population. Constructing a city also required a lot of manpower, something the Han tribe didn't have. If they sent troops to capture people directly, they could only be used as slaves, which would be a significant loss for the Han tribe. It would be better to find a way to peacefully attract some talent. You quickly came up with an idea. Establish a permanent market there, stationing a few hundred people for defense, just enough to protect against surrounding tribes. Then, through the permanent market, recruit laborers from nearby tribes to build the city and work for the Han tribe. The Han tribe would provide them with food and allow them to exchange their labor for daily necessities. These laborers would come from tribes within a 2 to 3 day journey. If they came to work for the Han tribe, it would be impossible for them to return home daily, so they would have to live in the new city. Day after day, they would interact with the Han tribe people, eating, sleeping, and working together. Once the new city was completed, if you permitted, they could join the Han tribe and settle there. By then, seeing the city they had built with their own hands, it was hard to believe they wouldn't want to stay. In this way, you only spent some goods sold to these laborers, and then waited until the city was built. These laborers, all bringing their families along, would join the Han tribe. By then, the goods sold to them would essentially return to the Han tribe. The resources consumed would ultimately benefit their own people, not a single loss incurred. It was as if they were building a city for free without spending a single coin, while also gaining a large population. The thought excited you immensely. You were one step closer to your ambition of founding a nation. You had just conceived a method to both construct a new city and rapidly increase the Han tribe's population. Establish a permanent market in the new city, station several hundred assistants there, and recruit laborers from surrounding tribes to build it. Food and daily necessities would be exchanged for labor. These laborers would live and eat alongside the Han tribe members daily, gradually assimilating during the construction process. Once the new city was completed, they could settle in by joining the Han tribe. Seeing the city they had built themselves, they would surely be willing to stay. In this way, you would only expend some goods as a cost, and when those laborers joined the Han tribe with their families, the goods would circulate back into the tribe. Thus, the resources would essentially be used for your own people, not a loss at all. Using this method in the future would allow the Han tribe to grow rapidly. Once the population base expanded, several teams could be dispatched to build new cities in various locations, further accelerating population growth. You decided to utilize the remaining winter months to prepare supplies. Ox carts, horse carts, white limestone, wooden buckets, tools, and more. Additionally, you dispatched the Feather Squad to scout for a new city site, searching for suitable locations to establish villages and relay stations. At the same time, you assigned new tasks to the manufacturing department. Mass-produce goods to meet the needs of Hanyang City's market and next year's trade with the grassland tribes. Any surplus supplies would be invested in the new city. The Han tribe's commercial focus would remain on the grasslands, as the profits there were substantial. You also prepared a richer variety of goods to exchange for more resources, especially wool, as the Han tribe urgently needed wool fibers to make blankets and clothing. Next, you returned to the metallurgy area to accelerate the development of springs, a crucial technology for increasing cloth and leather production. After successfully creating the first spring, you began developing the flying shuttle loom, which would multiply production capacity. Additionally, you invented the spinning jenny, increasing productivity tenfold. The wood processing factory also boosted the speed of wooden goods production. A proposal to build a windmill processing factory was approved. A month later, the cavalry squad sent out to search for trading populations returned with over 480 people, further increasing the Han tribe's population. The Feather Squad also sketched a rough map of the eastern terrain, giving you a crucial understanding of the landscape. However, city construction was a major undertaking that required your personal oversight. At the beginning of the 4th month of winter, you instructed Dashu and the elder Shuwu to guard Hanyang City while you, along with Lin Feng of the Dai lineage, Xianxia, and the 15-member Feather Cavalry Squad, set out for the proposed city site to survey the environment. After 2 days of riding, you reached the Great River. Using a measuring tape, you surveyed the land and found the terrain suitable for city construction. Flat land ideal for farming, with a vast area capable of supporting a large population. You planned to return and carefully design the layout of the new city. While exploring the nearby mountains for resources, you discovered that the northern mountains had reeds that could replace bamboo in making many items, such as cool mats, curtains, and door screens. In the southern mountains, you found pulp trees whose bark and leaves were rich in fibers, suitable for papermaking. There were also star anise trees, pear trees, locust trees, willows, poplars, pines, and other useful timber species. Additionally, you identified a suitable location for a village that could serve as a relay station between Hanyang City and the new city, developing animal husbandry and service industries there. After the scouting squad returned to the Han tribe, you obtained the survey data and began planning the new city's construction in Hanyang City. However, once spring arrived, the Han tribe would need to focus on spring plowing. The construction of the new city would have to wait until after the spring plowing was completed. In the final month of winter, the cavalry squad that had gone out to trade for people returned with another 300 individuals. Combined with the previous population, the tribe had gained 817 new members over the winter. The total population of the Han tribe now reached 4,000. Spring had arrived and you turned 12 years old. Another group of adults had come of age in the Han tribe, though the number was small, only around 100 people. With the arrival of spring, the annual grand sacrificial ceremony was held once again. This time, however, the ceremony was somewhat special, as it was not limited to the Han tribe's own members. Due to the return of spring, the monthly market at the beginning of each month also resumed. However, this first market of the year was not for trading goods, but for tribes that had learned to cultivate rice to come and study spring plowing techniques from the Han tribe. In addition to learning about spring plowing, the large annual matchmaking event was also relocated to the Han tribe's market. Chieftains, Shamans and elders from various tribes brought their strong warriors and newly adult young men and women to camp in the pastures west of Hanyang City. Most of these young men and women were visiting the Han tribe for the first time and were awestruck by everything they saw. 3 days later, the Han tribe held a grand sacrificial ceremony. To demonstrate the tribe's strength, the tribespeople marched out of the west gate and formed orderly squares outside. Then, the sound of drums echoed from the city walls, the gates opened, and the tribespeople filed out. A scroll was then hung on the city wall, inscribed with phrases such as, "Honor the ancestors and bountiful harvests." Next, 6 processions made their entrance, stirring excitement among the spectators. Following this, 4 high-ranking members carried the tribal flag to the flagpole on the city wall. You led the flag-raising ceremony and, after it concluded, delivered a speech praying to the ancestors and encouraging the tribespeople. The tribespeople then paid their respects to the tribal flag and the scroll. After the ceremony, the scroll remained hung for 1 day before being taken down in the evening. The tribespeople lined up to re-enter the city, sent their children home, and then went about their daily tasks. Once the crowd had dispersed, ox carts laden with various goods appeared outside the city and began selling. Among the goods this time were iron pots, iron spoons, steel needles, wool, scissors, and other novelties, as well as wooden tables, chairs, and iron farming tools. The Han tribe required population exchanges for metal goods, and the other tribes traded people accordingly, allowing the Han tribe to absorb another 300 individuals. Afterward, the east gate of Hanyang City opened, and oxen and horses pulled plows to begin the spring plowing. Fertilizer was also added to the soil. The Han tribe's spring plowing area was extensive this year. In addition to last year's paddy fields, the land on the east bank of the small river had been cleared during the winter, opening up 1,500 mu of new fields. You allocated the newly added wheat to the planting area on the east bank, planting half of the seeds as an experiment. Although you were not very familiar with wheat cultivation methods, you knew it involved digging furrows and scattering the seeds. So, you prepared several experimental plots and sowed 5 mu of land. While the tribespeople worked hard in the fields, you were not idle either. You took the lead in plowing 5 mu of land and then began preparations for developing the new city. The development of the new city required sending out a group of warriors first, with the mission to clear the area of wild beasts, establish an outpost, and lay the foundation for the market's establishment. The Han tribe currently had no professional soldiers, so you decided to produce some weapons and equipment first. For a professional military, uniformity was a priority, which would be reflected in their uniforms. The Han tribe already had some linen cloth, enough to equip over 100 people. You ordered the tribespeople to begin dyeing the cloth. The military uniform color was set as iron red, with 2 layers inside and out, along with military boots. The boots were made of cowhide, designed as black short boots, with soles made of cowhide and black iron, carved with anti-slip patterns. With the boots taken care of, armor could not be overlooked. You decided to equip them with simple leather armor made from rawhide. The armor for ordinary infantry resembled a bulletproof vest, worn by pulling it over the head and fastening it at the front. The chest plate was painted yellow and stamped with the character Eternity. There were also 2 leather arm guards. The engineer's armor was relatively simple, consisting of a single-layer plate armor secured with a belt. The cavalry armor was largely similar to that of the infantry, with slightly longer lower hems divided into left and right sections, and included leather helmets. The helmets were round-topped with forehead guards and ear flaps. After the leather armor design was finalized, the standard weapons were also to be replaced. The new standard spear was forged from steel, featuring a 4-edged, flat-tapered spearhead with a socket at the end for attaching the shaft. The spear's sound played a significant role, helping to gauge the enemy's strength and divert their attention. The new standard spear also came with an entrenching tool, which was highly functional. The weapons of the sword and shield soldiers were also distinctive. Their shields were rectangular, made of wooden planks with a shallow curved surface reinforced with metal strips. The shields had semicircular notches on both sides, making it easier to form a shield wall and deflect attacks outward. The sword used by these soldiers was the Yenling blade of moderate length. They were also equipped with entrenching tools as secondary weapons. The cavalry's primary weapon was the spear, with entrenching tools as their secondary weapon. In the future, they would be equipped with miao blades, a type of longsword suitable for cavalry use. Archers continued to use longbows and were also equipped with entrenching tools. In the first month of spring, the Han tribe completed spring plowing and military equipment production, beginning the selection of soldiers from all able-bodied young adults to form the first full-time professional army. With a population of just over 4,000, they could only establish a single company-sized unit initially. After the market gathering in the second month of spring, you gathered all adult males in the tribe at the city square and announced the selection of 155 elite warriors. These soldiers would receive generous benefits, answer only to the chieftain, and be responsible for protecting the tribe and its people, as well as expanding territories. The selection was divided into 4 types of soldiers, each with standardized equipment. For models showcased the gear, eliciting gasps of amazement from the tribespeople. The first round of selection then began. The men were to run 4 laps around the city walls, with the top 300 advancing. You used long-distance running to select soldiers to ensure they had the stamina to endure the burden of wearing armor in combat. Hanyang City's perimeter measured 1,400 meters per lap, making the total distance nearly 6 kilometers. A challenge for primitive people, but you believed they could manage. During the selection, you observed from the city walls. After 1 lap, the formation began to thin, but no one stopped. After the second lap, some collapsed and were helped to the side to rest and were eliminated. By the third lap, everyone had slowed down but most persisted. After the fourth lap, you waited at the city gate, issuing markers to the first 300 finishers. The first group of 20 runners returned swiftly, potential officer candidates. The second group of 80 were suited to be sword and shield soldiers. The third group of 120 were reserved as spearman candidates. The remaining stragglers were counted until 300 were reached, at which point you signaled the end of the selection. Those not chosen were directed to rest on the island, while the 300 returned to the square for the second round of screening, which would eliminate half of them. After a half-hour rest, you announced the second round, a 10:5 lottery to determine opponents. No weapons were allowed. Victory was to be achieved by knocking the opponent down with bare hands. The men drew wooden tokens to find their opponents and formed lines. You called out the matches, with 30 pairs competing in each round. The fights were chaotic, relying on brute force to determine winners. You noticed 1 pair exchanging blows skillfully and another pair, a lean man named Chai Duoduo and a stout man named Hu Mansong, locked in a fierce struggle. These 2 left a strong impression on you, and you decided to prioritize them for selection. You then challenged Chai and Hu to a match. The 2 stood in stark contrast, one tall and burly, the other short and slender. Both carried themselves with upright posture and an air of confidence, their eyes revealing determination. Hu Mansong was robust with well-defined muscles, exuding strength, while Chai Duoduo was lean and agile, his eyes sparkling with sharp wit. The 3 of them stood in the center of the arena as the surrounding tribespeople watched with bated breath, awaiting an extraordinary duel. The match begins. Chai Duoduo takes the initiative to attack first. Using his speed advantage, he charges toward you swiftly, attempting to knock you down with a blow to the chest. However, you were well prepared, easily dodging Chai Duoduo's attack and quickly countering, sweeping him off his feet with a swift kick from the edge of the ruins. At the same time, Hu Mansong seizes the opportunity to launch a sneak attack from behind. But you react promptly, skillfully turning to evade and knocking Hu Mansong down with a shoulder slam against the ruins. In the end, neither Chai nor Hu could defeat you, so they exchanged a smile of admiration, declaring the match a draw and promising to teach them more techniques. The other potential warriors witnessing this scene were astonished by your martial prowess and grew even more eager to earn the leader's favor. The competition continued, and you selected a young man named 16 for an exceptional match. His composure and endurance during the match earned your recognition. Finally, 1 quota for the military unit was filled. Apart from the 150 final victors, 2 spots remained. Naturally, you didn't select more. Your earlier display of skill was to build prestige and to lay the foundation for leading this army in the future. Next, you would teach them more techniques to transform them into true warriors. With the recruitment concluded, the Han tribe returned to its regular operations. You issued another command to the tribesmen. The original members of the border tribe would form a 100-strong team to plant forage grass at the former settlement. Deshu once again led a team to Mount Babeo for mining. As for iron or extraction, you temporarily held off, as the Han tribe's current iron demand was low, so there was no rush. In addition, you dispatched a trade caravan led by Yu Fu, with Lin Feng as deputy leader, to conduct business on the grasslands. The main purpose of this trade mission was to purchase horned cattle, ox tendons, and livestock, as well as to acquire more wool. Upon receiving the orders, Yu Fu and Lin Feng happily set off with the team. You kept Yu Fu's younger brother, Yu Yi, behind, planning for him to lead a team to establish a market in the new district east of the river. Both brothers were delighted upon hearing this, especially Yu Yi, who immediately began bustling about, inspecting goods from various workshops. Recently, the Han tribe slaves continued with construction work. It was estimated that within a year, the entire Hanyang city construction project would be completed. Afterward, the slaves would be transferred to the new city, so there was no need to worry about a lack of work. After arranging these external tasks, you plunged back into military development. The future of the Han tribe's army depended on how you laid its foundation now. You understood well that soldiers should be separate from ordinary civilians, so you ordered the soldiers to relocate, allocating warehouses as barracks. The warehouse floors were paved with blue bricks, and bunk beds and long tables were crafted to facilitate both daily life and learning. You planned for these soldiers to study cultural knowledge, laying the groundwork for future teachers in schools. Next, you urged the carpentry team and Yao Gong's group to produce teaching tools like blackboards, chalk, and small slates so the soldiers could learn to write. In the second month of spring, the barracks and classrooms were completed. Through training and competitions, the soldiers were divided into 4 military branches, forming 4 main banners. You appointed Shuda as the drum major, Zhang Shuatu as deputy section chief, and Shoya as the ancient minister of war. Each branch also had its own banner leaders. The soldiers began specialized training. You also composed a military song, Sons of the Great Han, to be taught during cultural lessons. Daily training included formation drills, physical exercises, formation practice, and soldier versus soldier combat. In the afternoons, cultural classes were held. You integrated Chinese characters into military formation teaching, allowing the soldiers to learn both military tactics and Chinese characters simultaneously. In addition, the morning training exercises were assessed, with critiques provided on areas needing improvement. The soldiers then continued with their physical conditioning. Beyond military training, you also organized a group of students to learn how to produce daily necessities and study Chinese characters. This group included women who had been pregnant the previous winter and children around 10 years old, totaling about 200 people. You taught the characters through written articles, enabling the students to master them while learning practical skills. Throughout the third month of spring, you balanced military reorganization with teaching. The merchant caravan led by Yi and the army of Shuda set out to prepare for the new city. Meanwhile, Yufu's caravan was on the grasslands searching for tribes to trade with, but they found that last year's tribes were no longer in the same locations. Ingfeng explained that grassland tribes migrate according to the abundance of water and pasture, and they could use this pattern to locate new tribes. In April, the advance team for the new city arrived at their destination and began setting up camp. Nearby, tribal hunting parties noticed their activities, but, due to the Han tribe's distinct behavior and equipment, did not approach rashly. One day, while fetching water by the river, the Han tribe's young cavalry soldiers encountered a tribal hunting party. The young leader explained the Han tribe's plans and invited them to participate in trade and construction. The tribal chief was pleasantly surprised by the proposal but worried about not having enough people to exchange for goods. The young leader clarified that the Han tribe would accept labor in exchange for goods and provide food and salt. Delighted, the chief decided to return and discuss the matter with the elders. The young leader then escorted them back to the camp, where they were taken to meet Yi to discuss the specifics of the market. Yi outlined the construction plans and trade conditions for the new city, which satisfied the chief. Upon returning to his tribe, the chief promised to share the news with other tribes to attract more participants. Yi wrote to you, reporting on the progress and requesting your personal input in selecting the exact location for the new city. After receiving the letter, you decided to go in person. The new city was planned as a large settlement with a capacity for around 400,000 people, modeled after the layout of Chang'an, divided into palace areas, noble districts, a grand academy, and 80 residential wards. The residential areas were expanded to accommodate more people, and you hoped to encourage population growth through policies promoting childbirth. Construction would proceed in phases, starting with the residential wards, followed by the city walls and palaces. You prepared a large quantity of wooden boards to serve as molds for building rammed earth walls, and then set out with a convoy and workers to begin construction. However, at this critical moment, bad news reached Hanyang City. A horde of cannibals, numbering in the thousands and armed with simple shields, bows, and spears, had attacked from the north. They first raided the trading party of the Sharphorn tribe, then overran the settlement of the Snake tribe. Refugees from the Snake tribe fled to Hanyang City. Upon receiving the news, the city's acting commander, Ing Rue, immediately took defensive measures, closing the gates and preparing for a siege. After consulting with the elders of Shu Wu, it was decided to recall the clansmen, secure the livestock, lock the 3 main gates, and dispatch 270 troops to assist the returning refugees. They also plan to send a messenger to you, hoping for your strategic advice. Upon receiving the message, you discussed countermeasures with Xu De, Xuetu, Shoya, and others. Analyzing the enemy's strength and equipment, you concluded that Hanyang's tall walls would be difficult for the cannibals to breach quickly. The real concern was for the tribes coming to trade at the market who, unaware of the danger, might walk into a trap. You devised a plan to gather a coalition of tribes near Hanyang City. Once your forces outnumbered the enemy, you would lead the coalition into battle. Cooperating with the defenders of Hanyang City from both inside and outside, we will annihilate the enemy forces in one decisive strike. You write a letter in response to Hanyang City, instructing them to hold their positions and await reinforcements, and not to rashly open the city gates to engage the enemy. Additionally, you remind them that in an emergency, they can slaughter the pigs and sheep in the city to create a diversion. You also specifically mention that the immigrants from the Snake Tribe should be well taken care of. Afterward, you lead the warriors away from the new city and head toward the small hill near Tugu Ridge, close to Hanyang City, to prepare for the rendezvous with the Allied forces. Meanwhile, inside the city, Yingrue, Xu Wu, and the elders quickly spring into action. Following your orders, they tightly shut the city gates and gather all the men in the city, ready at any moment to launch a defensive counterattack. On the other hand, the more than 200 immigrants from the Snake Tribe are also properly accommodated. After discussions among the elders, it is decided that they will temporarily reside in the warehouse originally used as a military barracks. The warehouse has over 100 bunk beds, and though it is a bit crowded, adults and children can manage to squeeze in. If absolutely necessary, the desks from the other half of the warehouse can be assembled to serve as makeshift beds. For now, a state of temporary alert is in effect. All households have extinguished their fires, and meals are uniformly prepared in large communal pots. The Han tribe has always upheld the principle of equal treatment, but under the current circumstances, food must be prioritized for adult men, followed by women and lastly, the children. Women and children are only provided 2 meals a day. This is not because the Han tribe lacks food supplies, but because no one can predict when the enemy will retreat. In such uncertain times, food must be conserved wherever possible. Every bit saved means one more day of endurance. Just as Hanyang City completes its battle preparations and you begin leading your troops back to the city, an army of over 1,000 cannibals finally arrives at the outskirts of Hanyang City before dawn. These men are all bare-chested, wearing loincloths made of animal hides or outfits fashioned from green leaves. Their bodies are painted with eerie white totems, and their foreheads are wrapped with vines of unknown origin. Though they are not lined up in orderly ranks, they are not entirely disorganized either. Faintly, many small squads can be discerned, each comprising about 40 individuals, led by a captain wearing a necklace adorned with a palm-sized skull pendant. Their attire is identical to that of the cannibals you encountered the first time. Among their ranks are not only humans but also numerous red-furred cannibal giants, this time over 40 of them. Even in a force of more than 1,000, they stand out conspicuously. The captives previously taken from the Snake Tribe and the Sharphorn Tribe are also among the procession. They are bound together with ropes, tied not by their limbs but by their necks. Half dead, they are strung along in a line, forming a pitiful chain of about 30 individuals. Several cannibals hold the ends of the ropes, gripped firmly in the hands of the giants, leading them as if they were dogs. The 200 antelopes captured yesterday are also among them, though their numbers have significantly dwindled. Likely, many have already been eaten. The remaining fewer than 100 are also tied in several lines and dragged along with the army. After making a wide detour through the mountains and forests, they unexpectedly emerge from the southwest direction, the very area that was once the settlement of the border tribe. They must have followed the tracks and will ruts to trace their path. As the group emerges from the dense forest, a vast clearing of over 3,000 acres suddenly unfolds before them. The clearing itself is nothing remarkable, merely a plain nestled among the mountains. But what astonishes them is that, in the eastern part of this open space, stands a tall, four-sided structure with sharp corners. Drawing closer, they see that the building is surrounded by water on all sides, its walls towering and insurmountable. The surface is entirely constructed from bluish bricks resembling mountain rock, smooth and seamless, offering no footholds, as if it were a naturally formed, steep cliff face. Only at the center of each of the 4 walls is there a massive wooden plank affixed to the exterior. A group of curious people arrived outside the west city gate. Will tracks and hoofprints on the ground stretched all the way to the moat outside the western gate. Then it vanished without a trace. When they looked toward the massive wooden plank aligned with the mark, it seemed everyone understood something at that moment. The commotion below the city walls also caught the attention of the guards on the ramparts. Dawn had just broken, and visibility was still unclear. Dozens of people leaned out from the watchtowers or other structures along the wall, peering downward. At a glance, they saw countless white totem warriors gathered below the walls, along with theater structures twice the height of a person, startling the tribesmen who were seeing such performers for the first time. Enemies! The enemy is at the city walls. Sound the drums! Someone shouted first. Immediately after, the great drums on both sides of the western watchtower boomed, their thunderous echoes not only rousing the still sleeping tribesmen within Hanyang City, but also startling the cannibal army and Jiuan below the walls. The enemies beneath the walls turned their gazes toward the source of the sound atop the battlements. Along the neatly aligned gaps at the top of the wall, countless figures scurried and swayed, with people continuously poking their heads out from the openings. All of them had their hair tied up, and they seemed to be holding weapons. Upon closer inspection, they carried either sharp spears or long bows. This sight immediately drew the attention of the enemy forces below. Their hairstyles weren't the main point. What mattered was that the people on the walls held bows and arrows. After all, the reason they had come was to find the tribe that used bows and arrows. Wasn't this a perfect match? The red-furred giant ape outside the western gate also noticed the people on the walls. Letting out an angry roar, it took a short, quick run up, then leaped high, clearing the 4-meter-wide moat and landing directly against the smooth surface of the wall. Unfortunately, the giant ape only managed to reach a height of 5 meters before it could no longer push upward. The smooth wall offered no grip, and after clawing futilely at the surface, it plummeted straight down into the moat with a loud splash. The enormous wave it created splashed against the wall and the opposite bank, drenching several nearby giant apes and totem warriors completely. Curses and angry roars erupted all around. The drenched giant ape struggled out of the moat and back onto the shore, then shook itself dry like a dog before continuing to roar at the humans atop the wall. In Rue, standing on the watchtower, patted his chest in relief, muttering repeatedly. That was close, so close that monster almost made it up. Thankfully, the wall is high enough, and the moat is wide enough. This was no joking matter. The moat had played a crucial role against Jiuan. Although the moat couldn't harm Jiuan directly, it restricted the distance from which it could jump. With its massive build and extraordinary leaping ability, if not for the moat forcing it to jump from farther away, it might have reached the gaps in the wall. But the moat's presence limited its jumping distance, leaving it just over 2 meters short of scaling the wall, a fact that greatly reassured the tribesmen inside the city. As for the totem warriors, they were even less of a threat. Forget climbing the wall. Even if they had a running start of several hundred meters, they might not clear the 4-meter-wide moat. Touching the wall itself would be a challenge. But not being able to reach the wall didn't mean they were incapable of attacking. After all, the bows and spears in their hands were not mere sticks. Although they didn't have an abundance of bows, out of a force of over 1,200, only about half were equipped with them. They still far outnumbered the archers among Hanyang City's defenders. And when it came to arrow reserves, the two sides weren't even in the same league. The cannibal tribe's archers each person only possessed about 20 to 30 arrows, and their quality was extremely poor. Very few had feathers attached to the tail, and they lacked arrowheads entirely. Their arrowheads were made by charring wood in fire and then grinding them into a sharp point. As for the arrow shafts, those that could be made straight were considered impressive. It must be noted that the arrows they were imitating were the very first generation of primitive arrows that you had invented. At that time, even you had no access to metal, and the arrows you used also lacked arrowheads. They merely had feathers from a peacock attached to the tail, and the shafts were relatively straight. In all other aspects, they were no different from what the enemies were using now. Returning to the giants below the city walls, the giant that had failed to leap over the wall fell into the water but soon, unwilling to give up, attempted again. This time, it retreated a considerable distance and once again leaped toward the city wall. However, unlike the previous attempt, the defenders on the wall were prepared this time. Just as the giant ape leaped high, about to clear the 5-meter height, several warriors armed with bows emerged from the arrow slits on the wall. One Ear was prominently among them, releasing his arrow. Under the command of Poison Ear, 5 arrows shot straight toward the giant ape's chest. With 5 dull thuds, all struck their mark, each arrow embedding deeply into the giant ape's chest from different angles. 2 of them even pierced halfway through its back, piercing the giant ape through and through. Before the giant ape could even touch the wall, it let out a miserable cry and fell, splashing into the moat with a loud thud. After struggling in the water for a moment, it seemed to snap one of the arrows off its back, then kicked its legs twice and went still, slowly sinking into the moat. Once the water surface calmed, a stream of bubbles rose from below, carrying up a significant amount of blood that stained the water red. The carnivorous fish in the river seemed to have caught the scent of blood, swarming over in no time and frantically gnawing at the giant's corpse. This sudden turn of events left the enemy troops below stunned. Even the other red-haired giant apes stared blankly at the reddened water for a moment. The defenders on the wall, seeing that one of these red-haired giants had been killed in a single encounter, felt their morale surge.